Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. Marvel, Opening Prince of Asgard. Chapter 81, Indestructible ST1. It was a light that was extremely shining, extremely hot. The star core was originally stable and continuously output from the star ring, and the power began to soar as the star core continued to rotate. Then, guided by Caesar with all his strength. Break everything, destroy everything. Originally it was a fixed star ring. The incomparably hot light was like a hot knife cutting butter, and it broke when touched. Dwarf Wang Ikui watched the star core riot, the energy surged, the star ring shattered, the corners of his eyes twitched, and he didn't dare to speak. This incomparably powerful terrifying energy completely shocked him. The star ring was shattered, and the light seemed to have lost its restraint. Begin a near-infinite extension. But Caesar tried his best to restrain the energy of this light, and then... It is the golden monkey who rose up with a great stick, piercing the sky and destroying the army. This unrivaled light is guided by Caesar from top to bottom. Crossed a star and ignited a firework in the starry sky. Swiped past Thanos' ship again, leaving a little more steel in the air. Then he followed the trend and split the army under Thanos into two halves. A scorching hot vacuum area with only scorched black ashes, like a moat. Let the elite army of the Dark Quadrant be unable to attack together. But cutting everything from top to bottom is not the end of this ray of light. Caesar fully controlled, swiping left and right, like a heavy iron rod crushing ants on the ground. When the light passed, all the elite troops under Thanos' command were directly vaporized. Ashes. Whether it's a vanguard or a leviathan. Whether it is a fighter warship, or a Chitauri after the whole body mechanical transformation. They are under this light. All are too small and too fragile. The light swept across, and the Thanos army was annihilated. But there is a rock, let the light crush, the wind and the rain hit. Still standing firm. Thanos was watching the moment that light swept through everything. I feel bad. Forget about others. He directly protected the four generals of Hela behind him. Then, relying on the incomparably powerful body of the Titan family, he resisted Caesar's 1,000-star strike. Hot, extremely hot. Pain, immense pain. But Thanos didn't back down in the slightest. The majestic and domineering golden armor turned into dark red gold juice and slowly dripped from Thanos' body. Slowly in the increasingly hot light, it vaporized directly before it fell to the ground. The skin of Thanos' entire body turned red, charred and cracked, and then went straight to ashes. But the incomparably hard muscles still resisted the attack of that light. But even Thanos blocked most of the ray's power. The remaining energy is definitely not something that Heihachi can easily resist. Corvus Glaive's sword turned red, and his body was struggling to support it in constant destruction and regeneration. Flesh breaking is still a small thing for Corvus Glaive. But once the sword that enshrined the soul of Corvus Glaive was melted, Corvus Glaive will never recover. Ebony Maw, as the first-class psychokinesis master in the universe, used the powerful psychokinesis to create a thermal insulation film for himself. Forcibly resist the powerful energy that escapes. But even with the protection of psychokinesis, dense blisters still appeared on his body. Ebony Maw can't keep out all the heat. Black Dwarf is powerful, strong, and has almost indestructible skin. The powerful heat and energy of the 1,000-star strike was resisted by Thanos himself. Although he still burned Black Dwarf, his whole body was red and his skin was chapped. But it failed to take his life. Only one, Proxima Midnight Proxima. As the only female among the four generals of Hela. Also a lover of Corvus Glaive. She has the top fighting ability in the universe, and a sharp gun that Thanos personally built for her. Thanos is a titan, not only has great power, also possesses extraordinary wisdom. Thanos' forging ability, in the entire universe, although it can't compare to Dwarf, it is still the top. Proxima Midnight, holding this spear, slashes 3 times with one blow, and I don't know how many souls of the powerhouses in the universe have been killed. But otherworldly fighting skills, and that powerful gun. In front of a searing torrent beyond imagination. Doesn't make any sense. Proxima Midnight was holding on to that sharp gun. It seems that the magic gun can bring her the most powerful power. The sharp gun became red, and her palms became scorched, and there was a faint smell of meat. But she had no intention of letting go at all, she just stared at Thanos, who was resisting in front of her with the most adoring eyes, with only muscles left in her body. Then, swiping hard at the eyes of Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf who were struggling. Finally, with a hint of supplication and determination, she turned to Corvus Glaive, her lover. Thanos couldn't be distracted from the situation of the four generals of Hela. Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf looked at Proxima Midnight's gaze and let themselves struggle to nod. Corvus Glaive, also after Proxima Midnight, casts a resolute look. Slowly and firmly, he lowered his head. Proxima Midnight smiled with relief. But with this smile, a piece of skin actually burst open. Then, before falling to the ground, it turned into fly ash. This skin is just the beginning. First the hair, which burns gradually, and then begins to disappear. Then, the skin of the whole body bursts constantly, bursting out countless blood, and then, in the air, it directly vaporizes. Proxima Midnight's honed muscles were no exception, starting to darken, carbonize, and then disintegrate in chunks. In the end, even the hardest bones and teeth in the body were not left behind. Only a pile of coke remained, piled up under the spear that was gradually melting. Corvus Glaive didn't look up, there was no light or hope in his scorched black eyes. But there seems to be an extremely terrifying power brewing. Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf looked at each other and smiled at Thanos, and then there was the final silence. The power of 1,000 stars is powerful, but no matter how powerful it is, it will not last forever. The heat of the light is beginning to decrease, and the speed of the rapidly rotating star core seems to have slowed down a bit. Caesar sighed as he watched the skin was destroyed, only the muscles were left, Thanos very terrified. If it weren't for the, army sweeping those dark quadrants that consumed some of the fixed star's energy. The 1,000-star strike should have dealt more serious damage to Thanos. Caesar was never delusional, and directly killed Thanos with the energy of 1,000 stars. 1,000 ones add up, and sometimes, it is still not 1,000, but just 1,000 ones. Caesar's current strength limits the upper limit of his ability to forcibly integrate and output fixed star power at the same time. However, the Dark Quadrant army was wiped out, and Thanos was seriously injured. And the Angel Corps under his command are waiting for the moment, ready to attack the ministers at any time. Thanos is doomed this time. The energy of 1,000-star strike gradually began to weaken. Corvus Glaive's sword was red, but it showed no sign of melting. Even the body that was destroyed and regenerated gradually began to recover. Corvus Glaive's lowered head slowly lifted. His eyes were fixed on the slightly relaxed Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf. They looked at each other and smiled decisively. The final battle of the Black Order is about to begin. Chapter 82: The Right and Wrong Person. Caesar is still in full control of the 1,000 Stars strike. Although it has weakened, it is still extremely powerful. Don't dare to slack off a little, in case you lose control. It suddenly exploded, and there would never be many people who could survive Nidavi. Holy Keisha led the Angel Legion to raise the Psychic Scepter, waiting for the attack range of the 1,000 Stars strike to become safe, and immediately surrounded and killed Thanos. Everything seems to be going very well. But at the moment, behind Thanos, struggling to hold on, Corvus Glaive suddenly kicked hard and jumped straight over Thanos. Kneeling down on one knee, holding the sword of the dead with both hands. It actually replaced Thanos, even though the energy was attenuated. But it wasn't a 1,000-star strike that Corvus Glaive could easily block. In just an instant, Corvus Glaive's whole body, skin and muscles began to gradually disintegrate and vaporize. However, with the skeleton of his hands, he still slammed the undead warblade on the ground, facing the power of the Thousand Stars strike. The already red undead warblade began to melt gradually, and drop by drop of molten iron slowly fell, and at the same time, there was Corvus Glaive, the few remaining souls. Corvus Glaive temporarily replaced Thanos, welcoming the baptism of 1,000 stars. Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf were not idle either. Ebony Maw pushes his limits, risking his life. He spared no effort to run the powerful psychokinesis, allowing his body to gradually coke. Success opened up a distorted space in front of him. 340 Doctor Strange uses magic to tear space easily. Ebony Maw will do whatever it takes to warp space with his powerful psychokinesis. Ebony Maw's body was scorched black, his brain continued to roar, the pain was extremely distended, and blood flowed from his 7 orifices. But before it was completely out, it was burned into coke by the scorching air. Ebony Maw has lost his 5 senses. Even the once wise and bright eyes turned black. But the twisted space created by exhausting his life is still in motion. Black Dwarf stepped forward as Corvus Glaive leaped forward. He grabbed Thanos's arm, which was still emitting intense heat, and pushed Thanos directly into the twisted space. When Heihachi saw Thanos resisting a blow from Jianxing, he was seriously injured, and the Dark Quadrant army was completely wiped out. And when Caesar's Angel Legion was intact. I already understand that this battle will never be spared. But all can die. Noble ideas, and their great master, Thanos, must not die here. The universe needs balance. Before Proxima Midnight was about to die, Ebony Maw and Ebony Maw agreed that they would spare no effort to let Thanos leave alive. Even if the price was their lives, and her lover's life. If Caesar doesn't know the secrets of Corvus Glaive, it's possible for Corvus Glaive to feign death. No one will deliberately destroy a very hard sword. The final battle of General Heiyao started smoothly. Caesar also perceives all of this, but he can't spare his hands to use the power of the space gem to force the distorted space to be restored, as he is fully controlling the 1,000 stars strike. Holy Caesar saw Caesar's anxiety. Forced to run the energy of the Mind Scepter, forcibly entered the attack range of Jianxing's strike. The pure white wings instantly turned black as they approached Jianxing, and even a large number of feathers began to fall off. Keisha's powerful body also began to turn red, the energy of 1,000 stars strikes, regardless of enemy or foe. The scorching heat and pain were attacking Keisha, but Keisha didn't care at all, just waved the Mind Scepter, about to cut off the injured Thanos' head. Corvus Glaive resisted the damage of the 1,000 star strike with all his strength, and may have even lost consciousness. Only half of the Revenant Warblade remained, and the rest turned into molten iron and piled up on the ground. Corvus Glaive is completely powerless to rescue, Ebony Maw has lost his 5 senses, and he doesn't even know if he is alive or dead. But Black Dwarf's body was still strong. Seeing that the Holy Keisha is not afraid of danger, she will kill Thanos with a single blow against the 1,000 stars. Black Dwarf went completely crazy, pushing Thanos into the twisted space, and then, desperately, rammed directly at Keisha. When the 1,000 stars strike is blocked by Thanos or Corvus Glaive, it is not completely blocked. Instead, Kyungxing's strike was directly shunted, forming a golden light curtain, which sheltered a small safe space behind him. The rest, up and down, left and right, and even behind him, the powerful power of Kyungxing's blow is still continuing. Holy Keisha forcibly passed through the scorching light curtain of the 1,000 stars strike. Even though he controlled the powerful energy of the Mind Gem, his physical body was not comparable to that of Caesar and Thanos. He was already injured and his movements were a little slow. Under the desperate impact of Black Dwarf, the psychic scepter that slashed towards Thanos' head was finally a few points short. It just crossed Thanos' face, smeared a few strands of muscle, a lot of blood, and a right eye. Under the impact of, Adsi, Holy Keisha and Black Dwarf fell out of the safe space at the same time and collided with the incomparably hot light curtain. Holy Keisha, a new injury has been added. And Black Dwarf's huge and sturdy body turned into a pile of coke in just a moment after facing the light of 1,000 stars. Sacred Keisha disregarded the injury, and was about to break through the light curtain of Jian-Xing strike again. Want to hit again? But it was still half a step too late. Thanos has successfully disappeared into the distorted space with an expression of incomparable pain and surprise. He also did not expect that Black Order would do this for him. Seeing that Thanos had fled, the Holy Keisha had no plans to come forward again and resist the blow of 1,000 stars. Waving some charred wings, he slowly came to Caesar. He also used the energy of Mind Gem to quickly replenish his divine power. With a slam, the black wings fell one after another and slowly disappeared. Holy Keisha once again returned to her former sacred and noble posture. It's just that there is still some abnormally red moist body, indicating that Keisha may need to rest for a few days. Ebony Maw's charred body is still standing, and the twisted space is still maintained. But the twisted space doesn't know where to go, and it doesn't make any sense to enter it to pursue. Ebony Maw's charred body slowly began to disintegrate, and finally, with a click, it turned into pieces of coke. The top psychokinesis master in the universe finally ended here sadly. Corvus Glaive in front of 1,000 stars. He still maintains the image of kneeling on one knee, with both hands firmly leaning on the image of the Revenant War Blade. The power of Jian-Xing strike is getting weaker and weaker. In the end, Corvus Glaive's body reluctantly maintained the appearance of a human while the body continued to recover. Even though, that human figure has no skin and muscles, only the skeleton remains. The energy of the 1,000 stars strike was completely annihilated after Caesar's final grip, after a little spark burst out. The constantly rotating star core finally stopped running. But above the star core, huge amounts of cracks were already covered. With a click, Nidevi has relied on the star core of the artifact for countless years. Completely disintegrated and turned into countless fragments. Dwarf Wang Iqi watched all this helplessly, wanting to cry without tears. On the skeleton of Corvus Glaive, some granulation began to emerge, and began to grow rapidly and disorderly. Like a pile of rotten meat, the growing granulation has lost its fixed shape. The Revenant's glaive has been melted for the most part, and Corvus Glaive's soul has been completely devastated and chaotic. Corvus Glaive is dead, and even if his body is barely recovered, it's just a bunch of flesh without self-consciousness. Caesar stepped forward silently, and quietly glanced at the remaining coke of Hela. Then, one stepped on the undead warblade. The granulation on the charred skeleton proliferated wildly, but after a while, everything disappeared. Corvus Glaive is dead. A brave and fearless warrior should never be an ugly lump of meat. Caesar could kill Thanos and his legions without hesitation. But that's for ideas, for profit. If it is not for the attribution of infinite gems, there is still a difference in philosophy, which cannot be reconciled. Caesar, who has untied his knot, may be able to become friends with Thanos. It can even implicitly support some of Thanos' behavior. As long as it is not to balance the planet under his command. Are they wrong? They are not wrong. Thanos didn't, Obsidian didn't, Caesar and Angel Corps didn't. Civilization is never right or wrong. There are no ideas and interests either. Chapter 83 Do Not Deceive God. Thanos was seriously wounded and left, and the Black Order and the elite of the Dark Quadrant were wiped out. Nidevi's danger was instantly dismantled. However, the Star Core was completely destroyed, and all the dwarfs of Nidevi could no longer continue to use the energy of the Star Core for forging. Nidevi, can't stay. Under Caesar's strong invitation, Dwarf Wang Iqi reluctantly led all the dwarf. All moved to the core area of Caesar, near Angel Star. For this group of dwarfs, Caesar specially selected a neutron star with far more abundant energy than the previous star nucleus as the new melting furnace of dwarfs. His sun scepter, but also rely on these dwarf to forge for him. The scepter is designed to be golden throughout, pointed and sharp at the bottom, and gradually enlarged at the top to form a hollow crown, which can not only greatly enhance Caesar's solar power. Above the crown of the sun scepter, Caesar also deliberately left a hole. The power of 6 infinite gems can be mounted and combined. Under a large number of vibranium and Ulu Cobalco that have been reduced by PIM particles, as well as countless compressed cosmic precious metals. This will be a god-level weapon that is no weaker than the Storm Axe. If Caesar holds this rod, his combat power will also be greatly improved, completely crushing all the powerhouses who are close to the Fourth Order ultimate combat power. And, enough to kill them. The forging of the Sun Scepter will take some time, after Caesar appeases the Dwarf King. I didn't spend much time at Angel Star. After ordering all his subordinates to try their best to search for the trace of Thanos, and then issuing a huge reward to obtain the coordinates of Thanos, Caesar led Valina, dodged, and came to Earth again. Earth holds great mystery and can vaguely enhance his soul. If it weren't for the fact that the geographical location was not superior, and he was worried about attracting mysterious and unpredictable gods. Caesar really wants to turn the Earth directly into a new capital. But after Caesar had dealt with everything and returned to Earth, a new problem was discovered. That is, Loki, who was thrown into the mountains by him. Gone. After Loki got the psychic scepter, he wanted to start on the spot. Gain dominion of Midgard. Was placed directly by Caesar. Very simply shattered his vain attempt to rule the Earth. But Loki is Frigg's beloved child after all, and Caesar didn't think about what to do with Loki if it wasn't necessary. Mind Gem got it anyway, cut most of the previously agreed quid pro quo, gave him a planet, and let him try to rule, nothing. To the point where Caesar is now, as long as there is less trouble, 10 or 8 life planets are not a problem. The universe is too vast. But Loki, missing. Caesar spreads his senses, trying to sense Loki's breath. But still not found. Contacted Heimdall. Heimdall was busy helping Thor to settle the war in the 9 realms, and after knowing that Loki and Caesar were together, he didn't pay much attention to Loki's affairs. Let Heimdall scan the Earth with wide eyes. Still no trace of Loki was found. Caesar frowned, thinking of something. A flash came to Nick Fury, who was having a meeting with the Avengers. The Sun God. Black Widow looked at the sudden appearance of Caesar and whispered, because of Hawkeye's death, she was somewhat dissatisfied with Caesar. But her long career as an agent and her awareness of the obvious gap in strength made her forcibly suppress her anger. The good man Phil Coulson escaped because of Caesar and stood far behind Nick Fury, looking at Caesar respectfully. He was also a believer, although not very religious. Caesar, and his angel, really saved a lot of people. Nick Fury and Tony Stark looked at Caesar and said nothing. Dr. Banner obediently took 2 steps back. He didn't want to get into big trouble, and neither did Hulk. The atmosphere was a little tense. However, the Captain America who was brainwashed by super serum directly broke the tense atmosphere. The Sun God, why are you here? Here, you are not welcome. 35. Oh, I only saved New York not long ago, and I saved your life by the way. Do you treat your savior like this, your God? It really makes me a little sad. 35. Caesar said playfully. All fighting and fighting has a reason. Even if the Avengers are not worth mentioning in his presence, if not necessary. Caesar didn't want to run over them casually either. Definitely, provided they know each other. Obviously, Nick Fury is a very acquainted person. He waved his hand hastily, stopped Captain America from continuing to speak, and then directly signaled Captain America and the disaffected Black Widow to return to his room. Dr. Banner also took the opportunity to leave the conference room. He didn't want to face God. Neither did Hulk. A moment later, Caesar was the only one left in the room, Tony Stark, Nick Fury and Phil Coulson. Great deity, I wonder what your sudden visit is for? Nick Fury said with a very respectful appearance. As for what was on his mind, who knows? One thing, my cousin Loki, is missing. Do you know his whereabouts? Caesar asked Nick. Fury's eyes. Phil Coulson and Tony are confused. That bastard Loki is missing. Why are you asking us? We didn't catch Loki. Nick. Fury was taken aback and was very curious about how Loki disappeared. He had a guess in his heart, but his face was very calm, and he replied truthfully. I don't know his whereabouts. We haven't tried to catch him since that battle. Not that Nick. Fury didn't want to. The whole S.H.I.E.L.D. was very unhappy with Loki. But the only Hulk who has the strength to crush Loki dare not shoot, and the current Iron Man may not be able to take Loki. Especially, considering Loki's relationship with Caesar, S.H.I.E.L.D. really didn't dare to catch Loki. 0. 4 flowers. As Caesar said, mortals are not qualified to judge God. Nick. Fury wasn't lying, and Caesar saw it. But Caesar doesn't believe the real Nick. Fury in front of him, and has no guesses about Loki's whereabouts. On this earth, it is possible to capture Loki. And make it difficult for Caesar and Heimdall to discover who and what forces Loki's traces are. Not much, apart from being bent on defending against dimensional invasion, there is no reason to capture Loki's Sorcerer Supreme, and Mephisto, who can't hide, and doesn't even necessarily stay on Earth. Only the Skrulls, with the strength and motivation, quietly captured Loki. Caesar still remembers the hatred they had dispatched to capture the 3 warriors and Sif. Loki wouldn't be an abomination opponent either. I believe you didn't arrest him. I was just asking if you knew his whereabouts. Nick. Fury, you or the guys behind you don't really want to offend the gods. Caesar looked into Nick Fury's eyes and said softly. Nick. Fury gets a little nervous. He heard Caesar's secret threat. Moreover, Caesar's strength is too strong, neither he nor the Skrulls can be his opponent at all. But even Nick Fury was very nervous. But as the king of agents, he still forcibly maintained a gentle heartbeat and a calm face. Facing Caesar's eyes, he said very seriously. Great God, I really don't know where Loki is. 39. This sentence still does not lie. But as a Skrull collaborator, he controlled S.H.I.E.L.D. for many years. He had also heard about some of the Skrull's biochemical experiments. It just hasn't been dismantled. Caesar smiled, but his eyes became extremely sharp in an instant. What gave you the courage to hide it from me? Is that the old roar? 99. Hear the secret of the roar machine being revealed. Nick. Fury's face changed immediately. That's Nick Fury's biggest reliance. It is also the confidence of Nick Fury, who dares to cooperate with the Skrulls for many years. Back then, only the Skrulls had seen Carol destroy the entire Kree fleet with his bare hands. And him. Nick Fury began to feel uneasy. Why did Caesar know about the roar machine? What will you do when you know? Could Carol be his match? Nick Fury's heart was a mess, but unfortunately, there was no chance to sort it out. Sorry, I also forgot to say a word. Mortals can't judge God, and can't deceive God. That roar machine can't save you. As soon as Caesar finished speaking, a golden flame appeared in his eyes, directly burning Nick Fury and the old roar machine to ashes. Aside, Phil Coulson and Tony Stark widened their eyes, staring at the scene of the knife in disbelief. G. Chapter 84, The Hidden Skrull. The Mark 7 quickly overturned, Iron Man staring at Caesar as if he were facing a formidable enemy. Without hesitation, Phil Coulson took out his gun and aimed it at Caesar. At the same time, the most dangerous alert was issued. The harsh siren began to sound continuously on the aerospace aircraft carrier. Although Phil Coulson is a follower of Caesar, as an agent, his belief is not strong. And Nick Fury, he has been with Nick Fury for more than 10 years. They are not only bosses and subordinates, but also friends who are born and die together. Dr. Banner, Black Widow, and Captain America, as well as a large number of soldiers, rushed over after hearing the piercing siren. Phil Coulson, what's going on? What about the chief? Black Widow hurried into the conference room, glanced at it, and asked the nervous Phil Coulson. There is no surveillance in the conference room, and many secrets cannot be recorded. Phil Coulson still pointed the gun at Caesar in one hand, and pointed at the pile of ashes on the ground with the other hand trembling. Director, 347 was killed by him. Black Widow and all the agents immediately pointed their guns at Caesar. Captain America immediately lifted the shield up. Dr. Banner took a step forward, then stopped immediately. He didn't know Nick Fury well, and Hulk didn't want to fight Caesar. Why not just attack directly? Caesar asked with a smile. Neither the nervous Phil Coulson nor the disaffected Black Widow nor the upright Captain America attacked Caesar directly. Maybe it's because it's above an aerospace carrier, at an altitude of tens of thousands of meters. Maybe, just out of fear. Because they all know that if they do, perhaps, they will die. Why? Tony Stark asked in a low voice, pale. I said, because he deceived God, is that reason enough? After Caesar finished speaking, he looked around and saw that no one had put down their weapons. Well, you really aren't believers. Caesar shrugged indifferently, and then said seriously to Tony Stark. Tony, you know, I've always been very optimistic about you, so I'm willing to give you an answer. Do you want to listen? 39. Definitely. Tony Stark replied without hesitation. Either way, he needs a reasonable explanation from Caesar. This is in the new century, except for those mad believers, no one would be willing to accept a god who will burn people to death if they disagree. Unless, Caesar kills all those who disobey. But, there is no need for that. Very well, I will give you an answer, but I hope you can give me an answer after listening to this answer. Caesar finished whispering to Tony, then to the crowd. Because, Nick Fury, has committed a crime against the planet, against humanity. Impossible. Are you fooling us as idiots? Captain America said angrily, holding Shield's hand, looking a little pale because of the extra strength. Caesar glanced at the people around who still hadn't put down their weapons, suddenly smiled, and then said. Because he cheated on me, offended me, made me angry. When I get angry, I will decide whether to set off a flood to clean the entire human race, or whether to simply take the earth and firework. You said, did Director Nick commit a crime against the earth or against humanity? 35. After Caesar finished speaking, everyone's face began to pale, except for Captain America. Captain America is always fearless, but he's not a fool. He knows, maybe what Caesar is saying is true, he doesn't dare to gamble. Silence, dead silence. Until Caesar's chuckle finally broke the dead silence. Caesar shook his head and said to the crowd. I'm just joking with you, I want you to understand who you are facing. As soon as Caesar finished speaking, all the guns in everyone's hands became extremely hot. Black Widow and the group of agents had to hurriedly throw away all the weapons in their hands. Phil Coulson, you know what I mean? 35. Skrulls, you shouldn't have forgotten them. Caesar asked Phil Coulson directly. Everyone also looked at Phil Coulson following Caesar's question. Does Nick Fury's death really hide some big secrets? Tony Stark thoughtfully, directly lifted the Mark 7. Looking at Caesar and Phil Coulson very seriously, he said. I want to know everything, including Nick Fury, and those Skrulls. The meeting room fell silent again, but this time, there was a strange atmosphere brewing. Phil Coulson swung the normal agents away, and then seemed a little tangled, not knowing what to say. He knew that Nick Fury had something to do with the Skrulls, but it had nothing to do with harming the planet or harming humanity. Phil Coulson, and even Nick Fury, were unaware of some of the Skrulls' covert operations. Nick Fury really didn't think about harming the planet and harming the entire human race. But some of the things he did put the Earth and the entire human race in danger. And, most importantly, he deceived God. Caesar, displeased with him. Well, it looks like our Phil Coulson agent doesn't know much either. Caesar indifferently found a chair and sat down, then said to the crowd. Then, I'll say it. But Caesar hasn't started a lot of things from the beginning, and the piercing alarm sounded again. This time, it wasn't Phil Coulson's alarm. Instead, the radar of the aerospace carrier detected several nuclear bombs, which were attacking the aerospace carrier. In case of indecision, nuclear bombs wash the ground. This is a high-level tradition. It's really scary to say, S.H.I.E.L.D was first turned into a sieve by Hydra. No, Hydra directly turned S.H.I.E.L.D into a subordinate organization. But the so-called Hydra was turned into a sieve in front of the interstellar civilization and the Skrulls of the three major empires of the original universe. Coupled with the secret assistance of a mysterious force, Hydra has long been controlled by the Skrulls. On the aerospace carrier, there are also a large number of Hydra agents, subordinate employees of the Skrulls. But what they probably didn't expect was that just passing a message would lead to a devastating attack. The Skrulls didn't want to be exposed, and they didn't want Caesar to find out more. Even if they knew, Caesar probably already knew a lot. But they believed that the Skrulls' ability combined with the existence of the secret base and that person, it should be enough to protect the continuation and development of the Skrulls. The Skrull Empire is about to rise. The nuclear bomb struck, and the space carrier was in chaos. Even if there are enough weapons on the aerospace carrier, it can directly destroy the nuclear bomb in the air. But the aftermath of the nuclear bomb explosion caused a strong electronic pulse, enough to make all the electronic equipment of the aerospace carrier inoperable, and then it could only crash. From an altitude of 10,000 meters, falling to the ground, this is not only the 2.2 disaster of the aerospace aircraft carrier. It is also a disaster for the whole land. Not to mention, more than one nuclear bomb was launched. All the agents began to despair, including Phil Coulson and Black Widow. But Tony and Banner were able to keep their peace of mind. One is to understand that Caesar would never allow something like a nuclear bomb to go off. Because, Tony has long understood that the entire Earth should now be Caesar's property. Those believers, Caesar also made a promise to keep them safe. And Banner's mentality is peaceful, and it's even simpler. A nuclear bomb will not kill the Hulk. Caesar glanced at Tony and sighed to himself that he was indeed smart. After that, he snapped his fingers, and all the nuclear warheads that had struck disappeared immediately after the blue light flashed. When the nuclear bomb struck, some of the things the Skrulls did secretly became very obvious. They secretly manipulated America. Chapter 85 The Helpless Avengers. The Skrulls were just mentioned in the conference room, and then there was a nuke. And the LA Hell's Gate incident, the New York invasion incident, wow, they don't care about the lives of ordinary people. Are you sure, the current America executives are still human? You know, the Skrulls can change the appearance of others at will, and can read certain memories. This ability is really convenient to use to steal state power, right, Phil Coulson agent? Caesar dismissed the nuke with ease, then asked Phil Coulson. The hearts of the remaining people were tight, and then they immediately looked at the Phil Coulson agent. The Skrulls do have the ability to change appearances and read memories. But they were just a group of refugees, and it was me and Commissioner Nick who helped them. How could they do something to surreptitiously manipulate a human regime? I don't know all of this at all. I must immediately confirm the identities of all the top executives now. Their blood is green and can be detected. 9. Phil Coulson was stunned for a while. He really did not expect that a group of refugees who kindly helped back then would secretly manipulate the human regime. Afterwards, he immediately shouted in a hurry, wanting to detect all the high-level human beings. Fortunately, in terms of genes, the Skrulls can't be changed and can be detected. So, those high-level officials who ordered the launch of nuclear bombs are very likely not humans, but the so-called Skrulls. Captain America asked coldly. 03. What role does Director Nick Fury play in it? 39. When Phil Coulson agent first followed Nick Fury, he was only a level 3 agent, right? Later Nick Fury decided to help the so-called Skrulls and cooperate with them. Then, within 6 years, Nick Fury went from being a third-level agent to becoming a director. Such an upgrade speed, in the history of your S.H.I.E.L.D. Has it ever happened? And, Tony, you should know that sometimes, the Nick Fury that appears in front of us isn't necessarily the real Nick Fury, right? Caesar said again. I can attest to that, at least once, when Nick Fury appeared in front of me as a Skrull. Tony. She Stark nodded and said seriously. So, as a S.H.I.E.L.D. director who has deep cooperation with the Skrulls, do you say that he is really unaware of some of the Skrulls' actions? Or, let it be, and let the Skrulls control the whole of humanity. Also, you don't really think that S.H.I.E.L.D. will follow your lead after Director Nick Fury's death? We just said the news about the Skrulls, and they reacted. You guys, what are you using to test those America executives? Just as Caesar finished speaking, he saw the Hill agent hurriedly pushed the door and walked in. An agent in the aerospace aircraft carrier just tried to rebel and blow up the power plant of the entire aircraft carrier, which has been killed by me. But, there is a big problem. The government has just introduced a New York agreement, that all the Avengers accidentally injured too many civilians in the Battle of New York, and they have no judicial and law enforcement powers at all. And suspect that some of the Avengers have colluded with alien forces. Because they easily let loose the culprit Loki, as well as Iron Man's steel armor manufacturing technology, it is also suspected that Iron Man obtained alien technology to successfully manufacture. And the Hulk, the government directly questioned whether he participated in the alien biochemical gene experiments, and is a potential biological weapon for the aliens. They demanded that all the Avengers surrender to the government, and after the government has thoroughly tested them, they will be commanded by the government to protect the whole world, and Iron Man's steel armor manufacturing technology must be handed over to the government, and Hulk must also be given the most stringent supervision. By the way, the market value of the Stark Group has fallen by half, and some politicians are trying to speak for you, but all the high-level executives, all the fishing reels, are suspicious of all the Avengers. Hill finished speaking in one breath, and then looked at the crowd quietly. Nick Fury's death, the sudden nuclear attack, the sudden announcement of the New York Agreement, and the mysterious Skrulls, and, the new Lord, the Sun God, everything, is a huge amount of mystery. It's also a huge hassle. She doesn't quite understand how the Avengers are, but she's very clear about it. There is definitely something wrong with the current high-level government. Dr. Banner blushed a little too. Hulk is definitely not an alien biological weapon. It is also absolutely impossible for him and Hulk to accept the outright regulation proposed by the government. That's captivity, and the never-ending study of pain. The appearance of hatred had already made him understand this. Don't get excited, Hulk. Seeing that Hulk was about to transform out of anger, Caesar stared at Dr. Banner, whose face had turned green. Hulk stepped back immediately, and Dr. Banner returned to normal. Hulk may have actually participated in alien biological experiments, but those aliens are the Skrulls themselves. 39. Caesar whispered, and with a flick of his finger, a large number of Skrulls secretly conducted experiments on Green Goblin, Lizardman, Spiderman, and even mutants, as well as Hulk and Abomination. Caesar manipulated the light. Floating in front of the crowd. Get caught up in a crazy green goblin experiment. A lizardman experiment with a severed arm and stump. And those festering mutants, horribly deformed abominations. One bloody human corpse after another, one cruel biochemical experiment after another. Completely plunged the Avengers into the deepest anger. The Skrulls have been forced to stay behind the Earth since they had seen Carol's invincible strength. It has been carrying out bloody biochemical genetic experiments with a large number of humans. In vain, the Skrulls themselves can also control the incomparably powerful individual power. They bastards, I'm going to have a press conference, they're not human at all. They're a bunch of aliens. The Earth and all the human beings must not be handed over to those bastards to rule. Tony. She Stark said excitedly. Afterwards, he immediately contacted many media through J.A.R.V.I.S to directly stab the Skrulls. Caesar watched all this coldly. Tony. History Stark, as a billionaire, has a lot of followers. There are also many supporters in the government. Just after Tony. She Stark successfully issued a question to America's executives, suspecting that they are Skrulls, and announced the simplest genetic test and blood test method. In the case that America's top management did not deliberately intercept Tony Stark's information. Immediately across America, there was a commotion. But soon, with several American executives, publicly in front of the news media, after collecting blood samples, Tony Stark, once again pushed to the forefront. Because that blood is red. They look like real human beings. The Skrulls have been experimenting with biochemical genes for so many years. Not for nothing. America executives responded quickly to Tony Stark's questioning, and immediately began to demand that Tony Stark be thoroughly tested by the government. And, hand over the steel armor manufacturing technology. Tony Stark began to fall completely on the reel. Definitely, there are also some people who support what Tony Stark said. They are also deeply suspicious of America's 347-story human identity. Because those high-level people's reaction to proving that they are not the so-called Skrulls is too fast. It's not America at all. Well, Tony, and you guys, it looks like you're out of luck. So, Tony Stark, do you remember you owe me an answer? 35. I think, now, it's time to answer. Caesar said lightly with a smile on his face, as if he didn't care about the so-called America executives at all. Tony Stark began to bow his head, and the Avengers began to fall silent. With their current strength, there is simply no good way to resolve the agreement proposed by America's top management. Tony History Stark cannot openly attack America executives. Hulk shot, it is not serious at all. If there are more innocent casualties, then it's completely incomprehensible. Moreover, there is no problem with the detection of human genes. Even if one of America's executives was caught at the risk of death, how would they confirm their identities? Or are they real human beings and the so-called Skrulls are just Caesar's hoaxes? But those high-level people are really not right. Black Widow and Hill, as well as Captain America, who didn't have contact with the Skrulls themselves, began to have deep doubts about everything. Phil Coulson was horrified and desperate. Because he knows that the Skrulls really exist, and those high-level people do have problems. It is impossible to detect that there are still all human beings on the whole Earth. Is it really over? Tony Stark lowered his head and fell into deep thought. For a long time, I slowly raised my head, stared at Caesar and said, I remember you told me that if you work for you, the benefits can be mentioned, right? Chapter 86 The Mysterious Crystal. Definitely. Caesar put away his smile, looked into Tony Stark's eyes, and replied seriously. Caesar never mind giving respect to people with talent. So, can you make the world peaceful, and don't let those inexplicable demons and aliens invade the Earth? Tony Stark twitched the corners of his mouth and forced a smile. That's what I ask. I am, Iron Man. As you wish. Then, welcome to the Holy Heavenly Palace. Caesar nodded with a smile, then stretched out his right hand and said softly. Then, what are you going to do next? 35. Tony Stark and Caesar shook hands, a deal, and asked again. Those Skrulls disguised themselves as America's top executives, that is, they mastered the fishing reels, and they also held great power in their hands. For example, those biochemical experiments, just need to release a few abominations, accompanied by some green goblin. It can destroy the entire Avengers now. Including this aerospace carrier. The reason why the aerospace carrier can be successfully built. The Kerry Empire cruiser that the Skrull refugees were riding on provided a lot of technological templates. The number of aerospace aircraft carriers controlled by the Skrulls will only be more than the one they barely control now. If it weren't for the nuclear bomb, some ordinary Hydra agents would not have made up their minds to die for Hydra. I am afraid that even this aerospace aircraft carrier, which is barely under control, will quietly fly into the trap of the Skrulls. No, perhaps already flying towards the Skrulls' trap. Tony. History Stark sees it very clearly, with the so-called Avengers' current strength. Powerless against hell demons, alien raiders, and Skrulls lurking among humans. Only with the power of Caesar can the entire planet be protected. To protect the safety of all people. Oh, do you think I'm going to go to great lengths to find the Skrulls in hiding, publicly identify them in front of people, and try them out? No, no need, the trial has already begun. Caesar snapped his fingers at the sun, and according to the news report, those America executives who had just verified their human identities and were pressing against Iron Man step by step. Suddenly, all the rays of light that fell from the sky one after another easily penetrated their heads, and left a deep hole in the thick earth. Looking up at the sky, a beam of sunlight just passed through the heavily fortified building and shone on the Skrull corps disguised as a high-rise in America. After those high-level leaders died, they could no longer maintain their disguise. Gradually, in front of many news media, exhibited the original form. Definitely, there is also a dead America executive who is really human. Either brainwashed, lured, or coerced. However, none of this matters. When he can openly stand up to wash the ground for the Skrulls, in Caesar's eyes, he has already committed a crime against the Earth. There is more than enough to die. Earth, now, Caesar tube. Look, it's not that simple. The Avengers were stunned watching all this. But, where is there a real human being? Captain America looked at the dead human executive in the news report and said. Humans who stand for the Skrulls. Just like Nick Fury, for crimes against the planet and against humanity, they deserve a trial. Caesar said coldly. But what about the Skrulls who are hiding, and their biological weapons? Black Widow then asked that the Skrulls who stood up were never scary. The most terrifying are the Skrulls that hide. Moreover, no one knows what kind of secret weapon they have in their hands. Well, sure enough, God should not get too close to human beings. 39. Who do you think I am? Caesar waved his hand, and an angel came directly out of the air, reporting to Caesar the latest situation of all the Skrull secret bases that Caesar had detected. Earth is so mysterious and important, Caesar directly stationed a whole team of angels on Earth, including 3 high-level angels. The 3 high-level angels joined forces, coupled with the flaming sword that could easily kill the third-order Protoss body, let alone the lizardman mutant. Even if a few haters joined forces, they would definitely not be the opponents of the 3 high-level angels. They were more than enough to clear the Skrull's secret base. However, Angel's report made Caesar's complexion a little changed. All remaining Skrull bases have been destroyed. But among those bases, there was only one abomination, few biochemical weapons, and a small number of Skrulls. Those Skrulls had all self-destructed when Angel attacked, and none of them survived. And the Skrulls, who should have existed in large numbers, disappeared. However, within those bases, many humans with strange abilities were found. Good combat power, but not a mutant. Somewhat strange. Also, in the base where the abomination was found, the angels also found a huge amount of crystal. The crystal seemed to emit a strange radiation all the time. Approaching its intelligent life form, the spiritual force will be easily aroused. This forcibly stimulates psychokinesis. Or some other ability. The angels have sealed it away, waiting for Caesar's inspection. Caesar frowned as he listened to the angels' report. The scroll mysteriously disappeared, which was also a huge amount of hidden danger for the entire Earth. In case they take advantage of Caesar's absence on Earth, they will create some kind of Resident Evil crisis. That can be a big deal. Only by living can one provide faith for Caesar. Dead, most can only be fuel. Caesar ignored the anxious expressions of the Avengers. In a few flashes, Caesar has separately scanned large parts of the globe carefully. The Skrull's abilities and genetic experiments allow the Skrull to disguise perfectly as a human. Even when it was alive, even genetic testing was difficult to tell. But they have a weakness, that is, the heat of light they emit from the inside out, and humans are completely different. Their physical quality is better than that of ordinary humans. Much stronger. Caesar scours the world. A few slip-through fish were indeed found. Then, it appeared directly in front of them. When the surviving Skrulls saw Caesar, all of them immediately activated the bombs in their bodies without hesitation and prepared to commit suicide. But Caesar just took a look and forcibly imprisoned those Skrulls. Skrull's physical fitness, Zhao, is stronger than human, but in front of Caesar, still too weak. They didn't even have the slightest chance to resist or even commit suicide. There was no torture to extract confessions. Caesar just glanced at their eyes and was about to manipulate their spirits there. Let them say where the Skrulls went. And Loki, was he captured by them, and then locked up there? However, the heads of those Skrulls exploded the moment Caesar's powerful spirit entered it. In their brains, there is another powerful spiritual force hidden. At the moment when the two powerhouses contacted, the Skrull's head blossomed directly. Caesar blinked, burned the corpses of the remaining Skrulls, and dodged in front of the huge crystal enclosed by the angels. After looking at it carefully, I let go of my spirit and took the initiative to accept a trace of radiation, feeling it for a moment. He looked up at the sky thoughtfully and muttered. Interesting. Chapter 87. In ancient times, there was no moon. Another dodge, Caesar returned to the aerospace carrier. At this time, the Avengers are urgently mobilizing the resources of the whole network to conduct secret monitoring of all the secret bases that may hide the Skrulls, or the high-level officials who may be pretending to be the Skrulls. Those biochemical weapons are horrible. It only takes a few large cities to unleash a few abominations and still destroy them. Even if the angels could arrive in time for rescue, it would only be a moment, or the aftermath of the battle. A few big cities can be killed and injured countless times. The whole Earth will fall into the panic of biochemical weapons attacking at any time. Caesar glanced at the restless Avengers and said casually. Okay, don't worry, the Skrulls on Earth have been basically cleaned up by me, and the rest can't cause any big storms. And those Skrulls who are hiding, I also have eyes on them, but that is not the scope of your contact. Now, I think it is better for you to stabilize the situation in America as soon as possible. After all, high-level casualties are not small. By the way, S.H.I.E.L.D may be an offshoot of Skrull subordinate Hydra. 5. So, how to clean it is up to you. If it can't be cleaned, don't call it S.H.I.E.L.D in the future. I always think that the snake shield is also very good. Finally, Tony, please enjoy your time on Earth, and next, your workplace is not on Earth at 3:47. You know, many experiments may involve putting firework on countless planets, not the solar system, but you can bring your family members or take vacations. As I said,
the benefits are great. Caesar finally glared at Tony, and then left the horrified Avengers to stand there. S.H.I.E.L.D is a branch of Skrull subordinate Hydra. This is the work of the Ball, and the daily work is to take the planet and put it in firework. After instructing Angel, who stayed behind, to look after the crystal, and told them to help the Avengers stabilize the situation in America. Caesar was alone and came directly above the void. Behind him is the beautiful and mysterious Earth star. In front of him, there are pits and pits, a desolate moon. I heard that in ancient times, there was no moon in the world. Caesar today, would love to verify this. The far side of the moon always seems to be pitch black. The sun never shines, only a little bit of starlight, adding a little light. But today, the far side of the moon has won the care of the sun. Caesar, descended. The outburst of divine power, the incarnation of fixed star, the boundless light, seemed to expel the darkness of the entire moon in an instant. The far side of the moon, too, began to become clearly visible. But Kai, at sea, looked around, the light swept away, but still couldn't find the answer in his heart. A little disappointed, but the answer should not be far away. On the far side of the moon, a familiar space battleship is quietly staying in the void. At the moment when Caesar incarnates into the sun, the space battleship starts decisively and rushes towards the nearest space jumping point. Even if they knew that after leaving the Earth star, they could only usher in death. However, although the space battleship is fast, it is faster than the Caesar with the space gem in hand. As soon as the blue light flickered, Caesar had already entered the battleship. It was the Kerry Empire cruiser that was once home to a large number of Skrulls by Caesar's forcible destruction of the concealment device. Familiar place. But unfortunately, there is no familiar person. As Caesar walked around the ship, he casually destroyed the defensive weapons in the Kerry Empire warships that were attacking him. It seems that after so many years, those Skrulls finally managed to obtain most of the authority of this battleship. One kicked open an extremely heavy ship door, and in the captain's room, several Skrulls had collapsed to the ground, not far from death. The Skrull Empire will eventually be revived. The Skrull captain finally pressed a roar machine hard. With a bang, the entire Kerry Empire cruiser, together with those Skrulls, and the roar, was directly blown to pieces. The moment Caesar entered the Kerry cruiser, the ship's self-destruction program had already started. Covered in golden light, Caesar, who was unharmed, waved his hand, and a gust of wind swept away the smoke. Then, I remembered the roar machine that was finally pressed by Captain Skrull. Thought secretly. Could it be that when Carol saw that the Skrulls couldn't live off the Earth, he also gave them a roar machine? It doesn't matter how the answer is, and neither does Carol to Caesar. Importantly, the Skrulls couldn't fool Caesar's eyes at all. There were very few Kree in that cruiser. There are also a large number of Kree people, as well as some biochemical weapons, missing. Powerful concealment ability, powerful spiritual power, and that crystal, and the surrender of Hydra, and a common enemy, 99. Black Bolt, Inhumans, don't think you can hide. Caesar stared coldly at the moon and muttered. I heard that in ancient times, there was no moon in the world. 35. Then now, there can be no moon. Just as Caesar finished speaking, he drew a flaming sword from the void and swung it hard. The moon is about to be cut in half. Discover high energy reactions, discover high energy reactions. Dangerous, dangerous, super dangerous rapidly approaching. Within the moon, a city surrounded by a huge amount of energy shield, Adelan, was resounding with countless harsh sirens. Taros, your clan has been exposed, and you have brought disaster to the whole of Adelan. In the royal hall of Adelan, Black Bolt, sitting high on the throne, said coldly to Talos, the leader of the Skrulls. Following Black Bolt's words, the entire Adelan began to vibrate slightly. But we also brought redemption to the Inhumans,
Don't forget the contract we signed. The shape changed greatly, the muscles all over his body protruded, and Talos, who was hunched over, bowed to the Black Bolt King and replied calmly. Inhumans are experiments of the Kerry Empire. Millions of years ago, the alien races at that time visited the Earth and had great interest in the mysterious potential of life on Earth. They conducted a series of brutal experiments on Homo sapiens at the time. Try to study the source of the mysterious potential of Homo sapiens, and create a large number of powerful biological weapons through these Homo sapiens. However, just after the Kerry Empire completed most of the experiments and successfully created a group of aliens with extraordinary abilities, it was only after thorough optimization. The Kerry Empire suddenly and completely abandoned this experiment, and hastily evacuated all of the solar system. For a long time, I did not dare to return it again. After the aliens obtained the powerful super ability, they also failed to be completely optimized because of their genes. When the offspring of the birth come into contact with the Terrigen crystal and succeed in awakening super ability, there is also a great possibility that the gene will be mutated. It can lead to physical deformities and may even suffer from strange diseases, until death. After Carol left, the Skrulls, who did not dare to leave the solar system through the jumping point, drove the Kerry Empire cruiser to carefully observe the entire solar system. Also found the alien race. Then, because of the common enemy with the Inhumans, as well as the Skrulls' increasingly powerful genetic experiment ability, they signed an oath of mutual aid. Through the research on Terrigen crystals and further optimization of the Inhumans' genes, the Skrulls have helped the Inhumans to solve the problem that their genes are easily distorted after contacting the Terrigen crystal awakening super ability. The Inhumans never forget, the Kerry Empire is like this, and the Skrull Empire is the same. Black Bolt said softly, but the whole Attilan was still trembling at Black Bolt's soft words. Chapter 88 Choice again. I will solve this trouble for you and protect you, but also, after this matter is over, the covenant between the Inhumans and the Skrull Empire will end. The alien race just wants to reproduce with peace of mind, and has no intention of competing for hegemony in the entire universe. Due to the possible genetic mutation of the Inhumans due to awakening super ability, the population of the entire Inhumans is not too large. Now, after finally solving the problem of genetic mutation of the alien race, it is definitely a matter of multiplying first, and then thinking about things like competing for the universe after the entire race has grown. After Black Bolt finished speaking, the Skrull leader Talos was silent for a moment, and replied calmly. Definitely. The Skrulls are already grateful for being able to solve the powerful enemy in front of us, and dare not ask for more. A Skrull man beside Taros seemed to want to come forward and say something, but was directly held down by Taros and stopped. That was Taros' son, Terx. He believed that the Skrulls saved the future of the entire Inhumans, and the Inhumans should advance and retreat with the Skrull Empire. No, it is not impossible to even directly merge into one and form a new Skrull Empire. But Taros knew very well that from the very beginning, the Skrull Empire and the Inhumans had no equal strength at all. Even now, the Skrull Empire has successfully developed a powerful mutant with multiple abilities and a mighty abomination. But all this, in front of that Black Bolt King. It may even be necessary to speak, and the combat power of the entire Skrull Empire can be completely dissipated. Now, Talos just wants to endure, just wants to live peacefully in this moon. Then, wait until the Skrulls successfully use Loki to study the secrets of Aesir's body, the secret of divine power, the secret of longevity, and the secret of Loki's unparalleled spiritual power. As long as all of this is researched, then integrate everything. Imagine using the superpower of the mutant to control the super ability of those mutants. Transplant the secrets of divine power and divine body into the body of hatred. Powerful hatred and then awakening terrifying divine power, such as thunder or frost, what a terrifying force it would be. In the end, thoroughly integrate mutant and hatred. At that time, the most powerful and terrifying biochemical weapon in the universe will be born in the hands of the Skrull Empire. The Skrull Empire is bound to rise again. Talos thought very well, and the plan was proceeding as scheduled. It was the Aesir Protoss, Loki, whom they took great pains to catch, and it seemed that something was wrong. Talos didn't have time to think too much. Now, the most important thing is, under the attack of that sun god. Survive. And can you get through this? Only rely on Black Bolt. Seeing that the huge energy blade is about to cut the entire moon in half, Black Bolt finally made his move, dodged and flew out of Adelan's energy shield. Follow the passage built in the early years of the Kerry Empire to the surface of the moon. The moon is a test site specially built by the Kerry Empire to study the mysterious potential of life on Earth. In the ancient sky, there was really no moon. When the blade struck, Black Bolt opened his mouth slightly and hummed. An imperceptible but violent wave directly met Caesar's blade attack. Then, it was as if a castle made of sand suddenly collapsed. The blade composed of energy actually disintegrated little by little under that wave, and finally, turned into nothingness. Black Bolt. Caesar glanced at the Inhuman who was wearing a tight black Inhuman armor, a pair of folded wings under his armpit, a half-face helmet on his head, covering his eyes, holding a white strange-shaped staff, standing in the void, directly shouted. In the entire alien race, only Black Bolt has the ability to block his casual blows in this way. The mighty sun god. Black Bolt opened his lips slightly, but a huge voice began to echo in the air. But the vacuum is not supposed to have sound. Caesar frowned, not thinking about it. Either way, those Skrulls must deliver Loki, and must pay for it. He promised Tony to get rid of the Skrulls. Hand over all the Skrulls, I have no interest in fighting you. Caesar and Black Bolt returned to the ground, voice transmission said. All battles have reasons to fight. Caesar is not afraid of fighting, but hates meaningless fights. Impossible. Get out of here and swear never to trouble the Skrulls again. Otherwise, then die here. Black Bolt said very confidently. He felt no less power than him in Caesar. But Black Bolt is fearless, even of the same power level. His unique and powerful ability will also bring Caesar the ultimate destruction. Moreover, he knew that the Skrull Empire and the Aesir gods did not have any grudges. 0. 4 flowers. Although the leader of the Skrull Empire quietly brought a Giants of Jotunheim to Adelan not long ago, it was Giants of Jotunheim. Everything about Adelan, even the grass and trees, as long as the vibration is still happening, it can't be hidden from the eyes of Black Bolt. The Aesirs, who have been hostile to the Giants of Jotunheim for countless years, should not be interested in this. There is no need to keep chasing the Skrull Empire. Loki's identity is a great secret, suffering from genetic aberrations, and the Inhumans who practice feudal hierarchies definitely don't know. Black Bolt's voice transmission is very firm, and the promised oath must be fulfilled, even if there is a war with a powerful enemy. This is the pride of Black Bolt. Caesar was silent for a moment. Without further ado, he swung the sword of flames. Directly attacked Black Bolt. Just now, the system that had not appeared for a long time appeared again. Detected that the host is facing Black Bolt, give a choice. Choose 1, kill Black Bolt directly, get reward, Turigen Crystal Safe Fuse Method, you can take a lot of safety awakening alien, Black Bolt Power Seed, the user has a great possibility to slowly grow into a new one Black Bolt. Choose 2, defeat and stun Black Bolt King, get rewards, Black Bolt's mandatory allegiance, the surrender of the entire Inhumans. Option 3, ignoring Black Bolt and retreating directly to get rewards, Inhuman Friendship, Skrull Empire's mysterious gene integrate technology, can quickly create a large number of loyal high-end combat power. Caesar had no hesitation, and after glancing for a moment, immediately chose the first option. The Black Bolt King possesses the formidable strength of the Fourth Order high level, and in the entire universe, there are very few people with such combat power as him. Although the Inhumans are trapped in genetic mutations and have a small population, they also possess a lot of powerful combat power. The reward for the second option is really pretty good. As for the reward of the third choice, the friendship of the Inhumans is not to be discussed, and the Skrull Empire's mysterious gene integrate technology, unsurprisingly, will be extremely powerful, and may even be the most precious of the three rewards. However, it is impossible for Caesar to be pushed back by Black Bolt's words, and it is impossible to let Loki fall into the hands of the Skrulls. The most important thing is that he has given Black Bolt a chance. Since he wants to fight, he will simply fight to the end. Exactly, you can cultivate a large number of minions with Turigen crystals, which is more convenient to use. And that Black Bolt's supernatural seed, Caesar also thought of a way to use it in an instant. In this battle, the Black Bolt King must be killed. Knife. Chapter 89 Mysterious Support. The murderous intention has already started, and Caesar does not hold back. Dodging and coming behind Black Bolt, he swung the sword of flame with force, and he was about to cut off Black Bolt's head. However, Black Bolt's reaction was too quick. Even if Caesar dodged behind him, he came to the blind spot of his vision. Black Bolt can still catch every attack from Caesar with great precision. Caesar's figure kept appearing beside Black Bolt, and every time it appeared, it brought a violent confrontation. The sword of flame and the royal symbol of the Inhumans, the strange-shaped staff of the Inhumans, collided constantly. Wiped out countless sparks, bringing the most shocking roar. Play fast, there are countless duplications. But after a while, Caesar realized that the flame sword in his hand had lost its power. Dodging back, Caesar looked at it intently, and then shook his hand. The flame sword that was enough to easily kill the third-order Protoss, actually disintegrated directly. It turned into countless dust and scattered in the void. Caesar stepped back half a step, but Black Bolt smiled proudly, his mouth opened, and an extremely harsh noise mixed with imperceptible but violent vibrations hit Caesar directly. Sonic attack. Caesar directly used divine power to seal his ears. With only sound waves, it was impossible to hurt Caesar's incomparably powerful divine body. But the imperceptible vibration struck, causing Caesar's incomparably sturdy divine body to surge directly. Even the divine power is a little sluggish. No, that's not sonic at all. 5. Caesar suppressed the surge of divine power in his body with all his strength, and immediately understood. Black Bolt's ability is not actually a sound wave at all, but an extremely powerful vibration. The vibration ability can be said to be one of the most powerful destruction abilities in the entire universe. No matter how strong the body is, how hard the material is. As long as it can cause its internal vibration, once the resonance is formed, in no time, everything will fall apart. Moreover, all life and objects actually move and decompose all the time. And this motion decomposition can also be counted as vibration. As long as there is vibration, it can't hide from Black Bolt's perception. Unparalleled destructive power, otherworldly perception ability. Combine the two. With the strength of Black Bolt, he can be called the overlord of the universe. It can even sit firmly on the throne of the top 10 powerhouses in the known universe. But all this, in front of today's Caesar. Not enough to see. Inhumans or mutants, although they are often unimaginably powerful in one way or another. However, because of the particularity of their abilities, they often have shortcomings. For example, the bodies of Magneto and Professor X are extremely fragile. This is a common problem with most Inhumans and mutants. Although Black Bolt's flesh body is constantly shaken by him, it washes away impurities and increases its strength. But compared with some powerful races in the universe, such as Titans, Aesir Protoss, and so on, still too weak. Caesar focused for a moment, dodging Black Bolt's shock attack again. Then, the bombardment of Black Bolt started directly. Vibration damage? Super perception? All of this lost its meaning in the face of the flare bombardment that kept falling from the sky and seemed to cover up the entire back of the moon. Without perception, the flare bombardment never stops. The shock and destruction of Black Bolt did not dare to rest for a while. He can only uninterruptedly activate the ability of vibration, which will disintegrate the scorching solar energy that falls from the sky. However, the energy of the sun, which is constantly being disintegrated, keeps accumulating on the entire back of the moon. The temperature of the entire back of the moon has also begun to get higher and higher. Caesar thrives in high temperatures. On the other hand, Black Bolt is like a fish that has landed on the shore. Under the sun, he can only open his mouth weakly and try his best to maintain roar's suction. If this goes on, Black Bolt will only be defeated. Black Bolt knew that he wanted to run away, but he couldn't escape the pursuit of Caesar with the space gem in his hand. Can only passively wait for death to come. Black Bolt gradually fell into despair. Attilaine, through the powerful perception ability of an Inhuman, sensed all of this. The Inhumans and Skrulls fell into panic at the same time. The strongest Inhumans in history can't resist Caesar's attack, that's when Black Bolt dies. What did Attilaine and the entire Inhumans use to resist Caesar? Could it be that the Inhumans who have just solved the problem of genetic mutation and have a great future will be destroyed like this? That's ironic. The Inhumans panicked, and the eyes that looked at the Skrulls gradually became cruel. They began to think that everything was the Skrulls' fault. The Inhumans and the powerful Protoss did not have a holiday at all. Perhaps as long as they hand over those Skrulls, the Protoss can spare Black Bolt. The Inhumans can still live safely on Attilaine on the far side of the moon. The battle continued, but Black Bolt's breath was a little weak. Aware of this, there were more and more Inhumans looking at the Skrulls with fierce eyes, and they slowly surrounded those Skrulls unconsciously. Tarx, the son of the Skrull leader, was dissatisfied with all this. I'm going to take a step forward and accuse those Inhumans of wanting to break the oath. Talos stopped it again, then waved his hand. The 5 haters lifted their black robes and began to growl. A large number of green goblin, lizardmen, mutants with multiple abilities, and some modified Skrulls also began to reveal their own aura unabashedly. After losing the strongest combat power of Black Bolt, today's Attilaine, the entire Inhumans are added together. Neither is the Skrull's opponent. Black Bolt's wife, the queen of the entire Inhuman family, Medusa, clearly understands this. Immediately put away the fierce light, there was a slight smile on his face. To the Skrull leader Talos said solemnly. Black Bolt needs support. This battle is a matter of life and death for both clans, and we will do everything we can to defeat that sun god. All the fighting power of the 2 clans should be spared. Everything, for the continuation of civilization. 35. Definitely, this is the responsibility of the Skrulls. 55. Talos replied with the same seriousness. It's just that the battlefield at the moment is filled with unimaginable high temperature, low-level combat power, and it is impossible to approach, let alone support Lord Black Bolt. Furthermore, I am worried that even if we send all the high-level combat power of our 2 clans, we will still be unable to defeat the God clan. We need stronger support. Talos then said with a wry smile. However, where should the strong support come from? Talos and the Inhuman Queen Medusa fell into contemplation at the same time. They can indeed have a strong support. But that support may also bring complete destruction to the 2.22 clans. The battle on the far side of the moon has intensified. Black Bolt's entire body has turned red under the constant flare bombardment of Caesar. Constantly use powerful vibrations to destroy everything around you. It also made his body a little overwhelmed. If it goes on like this, maybe the temperature on the far side of the moon will not cook him in the end. He himself will directly disintegrate first. Black Bolt is getting weaker and weaker. The Inhumans and Skrulls clearly noticed this. The Inhuman Queen Medusa and the Skrull leader Talos exchanged a bitter smile. Immediately made up my mind. If you don't save Black Bolt, Perhaps, the destruction of the two clans is just today. Release that person to support Black Bolt. Even if the two clans are destroyed, at least it will take longer. Moreover, once Black Bolt was rescued, he might not be his opponent after training. Even if he, by nature, restrains aliens. Chapter 90 The King of Horrors. Now that they have made up their minds, the inhuman Queen Medusa and the Skrull leader Talos have no hesitation. Directly on a black stone altar that had been sealed for a long time, he offered a hatred who had been forcibly controlled as a sacrifice, and then opened the long-sealed place of exile. It took the Inhumans untold hardships and sacrificed countless clansmen to successfully banish the former king of the Inhumans who were sealed. Honeycomb. Welcome back again. The space passage is temporarily opened, but the passage is opposite. Apart from the dead silence, there was not the slightest figure in sight. However, the inhuman Queen Medusa and the Skrull leader Talos were like great enemies. Cautiously stay away from the altar. Everything that is known about the hive from the sources is shown. Honeycombs are by no means good. Some extremely fine dust, through the space channel, seemed to float to the controlled hatred. Then, the hatred that was already under control began to struggle fiercely. At the same time, there was a terrifying cry. But the pain and struggle seemed only temporary. But for a moment, the expression of hatred turned into an incomparably peaceful expression. Afterwards, Abomination's whole body actually wriggled for a while. Originally full of muscles and bones, the ugly hatred turned into a handsome 03 short-haired inhuman guy. Cough, cough, cough. The handsome inhuman boy who turned from hatred coughed a few times, and then said in a hoarse tone, "I am back." With just 4 words, the voice of the beehive quickly turned from hoarse to full of magnetism. Hive glanced around, and glanced at Medusa's clothes. There is a coat of arms dedicated to the royal family of the Inhumans. Afterwards, he stared at the muscular, hunched Skrull leader, Talos. "I have to say, I am very satisfied with this body called Abomination. Do you have a more powerful host? By the way, the experiments you performed on this body made it very painful." Before Hive finished speaking, the figure of the whole person had suddenly disappeared, and then appeared in front of Talos in an instant. Almost close to his face, he said softly. Talos didn't answer. The reason why the Skrulls are unwilling to release the hive. It is because of the extremely powerful parasitic ability of the hive. Biochemical experiments on Skrulls. Intended to create the strongest biochemical weapon. It's a huge threat. The most powerful weapon that was finally built, but was easily parasitized by the hive, and then became the subordinate of the hive. That was undoubtedly the biggest irony for the Skrulls. Well, I'm very interested in your experiment, please do it. I will fully support you, but before that, you may have to pay a small price. Honeycomb raised his right hand and compared his fingers, with only a little space between the 2 fingers. Afterwards, the hive dodged again and came directly to Tarx, the son of the Skrull leader Talos. A hand directly grabbed his throat, and then raised it high, and then, countless fine dust directly entered Tarx's body. Tarx's body was suspended in mid-air, and meaningless and extremely painful gasps continued to come out of his mouth. His limbs struggled hard, constantly harassing the hive, but in the face of the powerful power of the hive, it was meaningless. Tarx began to look at Taros with hopeful eyes. I hope his father who loves him the most can save him from the pervert of the hive. But he only saw Taros' closed eyes. Talos is the leader of the entire Skrull. He needs to be responsible for the entire Skrull. He is more than just a father. In the end, with a click, Tarx's hands fell weakly, and there was only despair in his eyes. Much more comfortable. Honeycomb twisted his neck, then let go of his right hand. Tarx's body fell to the ground weakly, and then, like sand and dust, it fell directly into fine powder, and these fine powder returned to the hive again. All the Inhumans and the Skrulls watched everything in front of them with fear and caution. Then, My junior, what makes you not hesitate to release me who is deeply feared by you? Hive looked at Medusa, a trace of undetectable pain flashed in the depths of her eyes, and asked playfully. The Inhumans have reached the most critical moment. We need your help to fight the mighty enemy. Medusa said without hesitation. Not the slightest concealment. A flash of understanding flashed across Honeycomb's face, and then asked. You are not afraid, my ability. The Hive has the terrifying ability to infect and control all Inhumans, and all Inhumans who have come into close contact with him will be unconsciously infected by him. If spread intentionally, the reach of infection would be extremely powerful. And all the infected aliens will give everything to the Hive as if they were brainwashed. No matter what. There used to be a large number of Inhumans who were brainwashed, just because the Hive looked at his arms, eyes, or lovers more often. Without hesitation, he cut off his arm, gouged out his eyes, and tied his lover. Then, talk about these without hesitation dedicated to the Hive. Such an infection is too terrifying. Such loyalty is too desperate. So all the aliens who have not been infected united, taking advantage of the Hive's unpreparedness. After a large number of Inhumans who were loyal to the Hive were transferred away, they took the opportunity to seal the Hive and exiled the Hive. Let you out, the destruction of the Inhumans will not be today at least. Don't let you go, today may be the end of the Inhumans. Medusa said very bluntly. There is no concealment or deception in the slightest. Because she knows, in addition to the terrible parasitic infection ability, the spiritual power of the Hive is also extremely powerful. It seems that almost no one in 350 can deceive him. The original seal and exile event. Among the royal family, there are some unanswerable conversations. For example, Hive, before being banished, said to those who banished him. I'm ready, are you ready? Then, the Hive seemed to be successfully banished without any precaution. This is a doubt. But Medusa did not have time to study the story of the distant past. Black Bolt, can't last long. The Hive spread out its perception, and an incomparably powerful mental force instantly scanned the entire moon. Black Bolt and Caesar, who are fighting on the far side of the moon, naturally failed to deceive the perception of the Hive. Powerful mental power. Who is it? Are the Inhumans or Skrulls still hiding unknown cards? Caesar noticed the mental power of the scan, took some effort, and began to be on guard. On the far side of the moon, at this juncture, the powerhouse who suddenly appeared would never be his helper. Black Bolt also perceives this powerful spiritual force. In this spiritual force, he noticed the unique fluctuations of the Inhumans. Black Bolt was overjoyed at first, and then his face was full of sadness. Such a powerful spiritual force is not the alien he is familiar with. In the entire history of Inhumans, there is only one person who possesses such a powerful spiritual power. That is, the most terrifying king of the Inhumans, the Beehive. Chapter 91 Let everything go to nothing. Is the one who was crushed and beaten to death the current king of Yiren? It's a shame, but that opponent is not weak. 35. Let's go together. Hive smiled contemptuously, and then glanced at all the Skrull powerhouses. Talos did not dare to object, he went into battle in person, and led all the strong Skrulls out of Adalan with the Hive. Queen Medusa watched the Hive and the Skrull leave, and after thinking for a moment, she left behind an old third-order alien. Then, she also led the high-level combat power of all the aliens and went to the moon with the Hive. Back. The battle on the far side of the moon is very important, and it is related to the life and death of Black Bolt and even the entire Inhumans. Medusa cannot be allowed to preserve her strength. On the back of the moon, the Hive people who had just arrived on the ground saw a scene like the end of the day. In the past, the dark back of the moon, at the moment was like facing the sun. The light continued to flicker, and the earth was flushed red. The thin air is constantly twisted by the heat. There are even some areas that have been bombarded by the core of the solar flare, which has taken the form of lava, is constantly flowing. The air was thin and scorching hot. But all the Skrulls and Inhumans who came to the back of the moon are not weak. Still barely able to resist. Seeing the arrival of Black Bolt's help, Caesar directly stopped the bombing of Black Bolt. Taking a few steps back, staring at the crowd. The strength of the hive should not be underestimated. Black Bolt had a rare chance to breathe. After Caesar stopped bombing him, he hurriedly reunited with the crowd. He hurriedly glanced at Medusa and Talos, and then looked at the beehive very cautiously. Ragged and covered in blisters. Medusa couldn't hold back looking at the tragic state of Black Bolt, and hurriedly said to Caesar, "This mighty god! We Inhumans have no hatred with you, we are willing to hand over all the Skrulls, and hope to maintain peace with you. Now the fighting power of the Inhumans has obviously overwhelmed the Skrulls. If the Skrulls can be sold, the tragic war that may occur can be ended. Medusa doesn't mind being tainted with treachery. All for the continuation of civilization. And, for his husband, Black Bolt." Faced with Medusa's sudden betrayal, the Skrulls became extremely nervous and united. Glancing at the aliens. Even Talos secretly prepared everything. "Oh, it's you who want to fight, and you who don't want to fight. Has all the good things in the world been taken up by you?" Caesar said to Medusa playfully. "If you want peace, it's very simple. Except for the Skrulls, the life of Black Bolt is also mine." 9. As a king, it is great to give life for one's own race. 35. Come, Black Bolt, it's time to be a hero. Anyway, you Inhumans and strong people can ensure the safety of Inhumans, or you will die happily. Actually, I really hate pointless battles." After Caesar finished speaking, the Skrulls didn't change much. Some Inhumans have a little change. Especially those aristocrats who are not from the royal family. Medusa blushed, not knowing what to do. Black Bolt's face was already flushed red, full of blisters, and he couldn't see his face. Just watching him look at the newly appearing Inhuman's powerhouse on alert. Caesar had some doubts about the identity of the unfamiliar Inhuman's powerhouse. The king should definitely sacrifice for the entire race. However, if a king is forced to sacrifice by the entire ethnic group, then this ethnic group is no longer worthy of the king's sacrifice. The hive took a step forward and said in a pointed way. "Besides, the enemies are all in front of you, and you are still thinking about seeking peace, and you are in chaos. It's a joke to even try to launch a powerful combat force of one's own side to pray for the forgiveness of the enemy. The current junior, is it so stupid? Could it be that the aliens are now being slaughtered?" When Medusa heard this, she lowered her head directly. The other Inhuman nobles also put away their weird expressions. Medusa is just too concerned about Black Bolt, and the Inhumans have just ushered in a better tomorrow. No one would want to die like this right now. With a better hope, it makes the entire alien race even more afraid of death. "Oh, so, are you guys going to gamble? Take the future of the entire race to bet on an unknown victory or defeat? 99. What if you lose the bet?" Caesar looked at the hive in surprise and said, he did not expect the hive, which was secretly guarded by Black Bolt, to say such a thing. The hive and those Inhumans, including Black Bolt, should not be able to deal with it. Otherwise, why is he extremely powerful, but there is no one around him? The death of Black Bolt would only benefit him more. Isn't it a gamble to give you the Skrulls and Black Bolt? It's ridiculous, the future of the ethnic group has never been a gamble. It depends on the strength of the entire ethnic group. If you can beat us, the future of the race, just take it. 35. Hive glanced at Medusa and some high-level Inhumans contemptuously, and said with a chuckle. Then, a long whistle sounded. In the depths of the moon, there are dozens of powerful aliens rushing towards the hive. Hive-infected Inhumans have an incomprehensible, almost pathological loyalty to the hive. So, what will happen to the infected inhumans after the hive nears self-imposed exile? Without suicide, the hive does not allow their suicide to follow. Nor were they called to rescue themselves. Those infected inhumans' masters all know the plan of the hive. It was the sacrifice of a king for the sake of the ethnic group, and it was also the exile of a king himself. As a result, all the high-level aliens fell asleep with the help of a special alien. They decided to either usher in the return of the king in slumber, or sleep forever with the king in slumber. A large number of inhumans with insufficient strength never woke up after falling asleep. But there are still more than a dozen people with special abilities, or powerful aliens who perceive their king's breath. So, they all rushed towards the hive. The aliens under the leadership of Black Bolt, and the Skrulls watched all this in shock. They never imagined that there are so many powerful aliens sleeping in the depths of the moon. More than a dozen aliens who had been sleeping for a long time came directly to the beehive, knelt down on one knee, and said nothing, just stared at the beehive with incomparably hot eyes. 1,000 years, or 10,000 years. They finally waited for their king. Honeycomb glanced at the kneeling people covertly, without saying a word, still cautiously guarding Caesar. Suddenly, the scene became deadly silent. Black Bolt leads today's inhuman masters, Hive leads the warriors who have always been loyal to him, Skrull silently leads all-powerful biochemical weapons. The three forces secretly keep their distance, but at the same time surround Caesar. This is all your strength. Caesar yawned and glanced indifferently at the crowd surrounding him. Apart from Black Bolt and Hive, the strength is not bad, the rest, even the leader of the Sru people, Talos, is not enough. Black Bolt and Talos looked at each other, undecided. Good Lees, Hive waved casually, some fine dust mixed with a strong mental shock, and it took the lead to launch an attack on Caesar. Those sleeping aliens who were kneeling on one knee, after the Hive attacked, also burst into flames, and they did everything to exchange injury for injury, and even exchanged their lives for injury to attack Caesar. The battle has started, and Black Bolt and Talos have no hesitation at all. All made a decisive decision, put down their grievances, and worked together. Going to besiege Caesar. Caesar shook his head, resisting the mental impact of the Hive, and the golden flame of the sun ignited all over his body, directly burning the parasitic dust to ashes, and then by the way, he cut off a diamond-shaped arm. It was a powerful inhuman who could turn into diamonds all over his body. Black Bolt's vibrating wave attacked invisibly, and the Skrull leader's muscles soared, completely turning into a monster. A large number of long-range attacks, as well as several abominations and some inhumans who can only attack at close range. From all directions, even underground and heaven, at the same time, attacked Caesar. When the crisis struck, Caesar looked at all this coldly, with golden light all over his body soaring, the sun's divine power completely erupted, and with a soft drink. Then, let everything go to nothing. Chapter 92 Respect returns to respect, mercy returns mercy. The sun was shining, and in an instant, most of the divine power in the body was ignited, and then poured out, forming the most terrifying death zone. Within the death zone, most creatures with insufficient physical resistance can only turn into nothingness, unable to escape or resist. Only, face death. The light, the hottest and most dazzling light, formed a terrifying big ring in an instant. All the inhuman Skrulls were wrapped in it. Then, there was a series of deaths. The frail aliens and the aliens without special abilities were directly vaporized in an instant. Not even the ashes were left. Diamond Inhumans and several Inhumans with ice or super healing super flesh resisted for an extra millisecond. Then, a little bit of ashes remained. Skrulls are currently the most powerful biochemical weapon abomination. Under this most desperate light, the skin and muscles disintegrated in an instant. However, although the strong bones are blackened, they are still trying to reproduce a new body. It's just that the so-called super healing ability that I hate is facing the light that brings infinite destruction. Constant regeneration is nothing compared to infinite destruction. In the end, with a crisp sound, all the abominable bones were broken and completely turned into a few cokes. There is no more life. Medusa, the Skrulls, and those Inhumans who have slept since long ago, just waiting for the return of the king. All turned into nothingness. Pity those loyal aliens who have waited for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. I only saw the king's side, but I couldn't accompany him for a long time. I don't know if I complained. Maybe no complaints. Caesar doesn't even have 357 to think about it. Under the sun, all living beings are equal. Caesar brought them an equal death. But Black Bolt and the Hive, and Talos, the leader of the Skrulls, are still alive. The shock of Black Bolt was enough to destroy everything. Sun-drenched energy is no exception, but forcibly against the sun-drenched power. One of Black Bolt's arms has been shaken by an incomparably powerful force, completely disintegrating. The loathsome flesh of the Hive's parasitic can't completely resist the power of the sun's rays, and only a few bones are left. But after the sun shone, just for a short while, a large amount of dust spread from the deepest part of the bones. The Hive has changed back to what it once was. If not pale face, and somewhat transparent body. The Hive simply seemed unharmed. The Skrull leader's muscles soared and he turned into a monster. The incomparably powerful physical defense, as well as the ice magic power continuously generated from his body, barely allowed him to survive to this day. If it is just a mass of rotten flesh that can still breathe, it can also be called survival. Medusa died, all the Inhuman masters died, and those Inhumans loyalists who had been dormant since long ago, have only fulfilled their wishes for a moment, and they all turned to ashes. The Hive has no words, not even expressions. It just silently launched the most violent mental impact on Caesar again, and didn't even care that his transparent body was a little unstable. Black Bolt's whole body was festering, the shock disintegrated one of his arms, and the sun-drenched Yue also caused his whole body to be severely injured again. Pain, indescribable pain, began to tear in the heart of Black Bolt and began to roll. It wasn't because of physical damage, or because of the loss of an arm. But because he had been with him for a long time, the death of the person he loved most. Black Bolt's heart is gone. Black Bolt suddenly opened his big mouth, and even tore the blackened skin and muscles at the corners of his mouth. But Black Bolt didn't care, and sent out the most terrifying shock so far. No sound, no harsh noises. There is only silent destruction, all the way, rushing towards Caesar. The two strong attacked, and the mental shock fixed the body, followed by the destruction shock. After the sun shines, the power-starved Caesar appears to be in crisis. But Caesar's face remained light. Divine power is running out, but the energy of the space gem is endless. If it weren't for Black Bolt's vibrations, it would even shatter the space, making it impossible for Caesar to move it. Caesar has long wanted to bathe in the sun with Black Bolt. The essence of space is matter. And matter, when encountering vibration, will be disintegrated. As for moving the moon directly into the sun, or moving the sun over the moon, Caesar said, whether it's looking at Loki's life or the safety of the planet, neither can. However, just because you can't move them doesn't mean you can't move yourself. The blue light on his left hand flickered slightly, and Caesar moved himself directly above the sun. After soaking for a few seconds, he shook his head, regained his spirit and solar power, and then for a moment, back to the far side of the moon. Caesar is neither faulty nor does he want to die. Victory is in hand, there is no need to fight recklessly. With the space gem in hand, you can come and go freely. Caesar, who suddenly disappeared, made Black Bolt curse loudly around him. And the Hive just silently scattered some dust, distributed in the void, and carefully checked the traces of Caesar. As for the tenacious rotten flesh on the ground, at the moment, is constantly struggling to reproduce. A few seconds later, Caesar reappeared, exposed to the sight of Black Bolt and Beehive. With a snap of his fingers, Caesar once again drew a flaming sword from the void. This time, this sword should be enough to chop off the head of Black Bolt. The war resumes. The Hive and Black Bolt attack Caesar with all their might. But the shock of Black Bolt is indistinguishable from enemy and foe. The most important, at sea, is as the aggregation of parasites. The honeycomb is essentially formed by the aggregation of countless microscopic parasites. Such a body is most afraid of shocks. Caesar deliberately ignited the golden flame shield of the sun, and then always dodged in the direction of the hive. Black Bolt was extremely angry, and he was very wary of the hive. He never stopped and wanted to destroy Caesar and the hive together. But Caesar can always dodge the attack of Black Bolt in time. Only the hive was left facing the destruction of Black Bolt, and the body became more and more transparent. Black Bolt seems to have lost his mind. But Hive was still very calm and silent. He hadn't even said a word to remind Black Bolt. Seeing Caesar dodging in the direction of the hive again. At that moment, the hive actually disintegrated its transparent body actively, using a large amount of dust, not afraid of burning, tightly entangled Caesar's hands, preventing the use of Caesar's space power. Then, Talos, the leader of the Skrulls who was originally a pool of rotten flesh, also violently surged, urging the power of frost to freeze Caesar's feet. The next moment, the destruction of Black Bolt King is about to strike. Nice arrangement. 35. It's just, sorry, my powers have been restored. Caesar secretly praised, and expressed his appreciation for the hive and Talos at all costs. Then, it is the explosion of divine power. Caesar ignited the divine power in his body again, and a small death circle poured out again. Not only did it block the violent shock of destruction, but the disintegrated beehive was completely transparent under the light. As for the rotten flesh Talos, who had barely recovered, this time, there was finally no way to escape. The power of frost melts directly, and together with the power of frost, there are muscles and bones that are completely melted away. Talos, who died on the spot, could never recover. In place, only a piece of charred bone remains. Only Black Bolt did not die after disintegrating one of his arms and one leg again. However, Black Bolt, who was covered in dark wounds, festering and even unable to move, could no longer pose a threat to Caesar. Without hesitation, Caesar dodged and came directly in front of Black Bolt, holding up the flaming sword. With a direct sword, he chopped off the head of Black Bolt. This time, Caesar didn't miss it. Black Bolt died, and some knowledge about how to use the Turigen crystal to safely activate human powers came to Caesar's mind instantly. At the same time, a small white light spot that emerged from Black Bolt's body also appeared in Caesar's hands. That is the seed of Black Bolt's supernatural ability. Taking it, there is a great possibility to become the next Black Bolt. The destructive power of the vibration is extremely powerful. Caesar glanced at the power seed, nodded, and then put it away directly. Stepping forward, he came to the only black bone fragment left after Talos died. After concentrating for a moment, the golden flame of the sun lifted from his feet, mixed with an explosion of divine power. The charred bone fragments, as well as some of the fine dust hidden in them, were completely turned into ashes. As an enemy, you may be worthy of respect, but sorry, respect is respect, mercy is mercy. 99. Caesar murmured, sweeping around again. Only then did they follow the passage that the aliens came out of, and they were about to enter Adalan. Not surprisingly, Loki is among them. In Adalan, with the end of the battle on the lunar surface, the vibrations in Adalan also stopped. The battle is over. Did we win? All the Skrulls and Inhumans are waiting anxiously. The alien with the powerful perception ability turned to ashes directly under the first wave of sunlight. The remaining Skrulls and Inhumans had no way of knowing the outcome of the battle, and could only passively wait. Perhaps there was also some surveillance set up by Inhumans or Skrulls on the back of the moon. But those devices, under the constant flare of Caesar and the vibrations of Black Bolt, and the sun's rays, already damaged. They can only wait, waiting for survival, or the arrival of death. Not far away, Caesar's footsteps began to approach. Adelan, the legendary city of the Inhumans. How to resist Caesar. Chapter 93 Giants of Jotunheim? It's the enemy. How is it possible, how is it possible, Lord Blackbolt and Lord Hive join forces, how could they fail? 55. Inside Adelan, the Inhumans watched as Caesar, who was being monitored, strode towards Adelan. All were terrified and lost their souls. Skrulls, who the hell are you bastards offending? Adelan, it's over, the Inhumans, it's over. The old Inhuman who stayed behind grabbed a Skrull's collar with both hands, lifted him up, and shouted in pain. Then, the Skrull was thrown directly to the ground. A large piece of dust was splashed. We still have Adelan, Adelan's defense is unbreakable. A young Inhuman hurriedly shouted, and the remaining young Inhumans also rekindled their hopes. All looked at the monitor screen with hopeful eyes. Adelan is the city of hope and legend of the Inhumans, with a powerful defense ability. Its shield is strong enough to resist meteorites in the void. The young Inhuman still had hope, but the old Inhuman collapsed to the ground in despair. On the monitor screen, Caesar came to Adelan's protective shield and smiled at the monitor. Then, he stretched out a finger and poked it lightly. Adelan's protective shield, which was enough to attack the Hell meteor, disintegrated in an instant. In the hall, the aliens who practiced closed-door feudal rule were completely dumbfounded, and a large number of ordinary aliens began to become chaotic. Caesar has not yet attacked, and the chaos of the entire Inhumans is enough to cause them heavy losses. But the Skrulls are not desperate yet, they still have one last hole card. There is one last silver lining. All the Skrulls gathered together, and from the laboratory, they brought out Loki, who was shackled all over his body and had a neurotoxin device installed around his neck. They know that Loki is Caesar's younger brother. It is precisely because of this that they hurried to the moon after kidnapping Loki, and even prepared to abandon the entire Earth base at any time. Sun God, let us all go. We swear we will drive Adelan off Earth and never come back. One of the remaining leaders of the Skrulls hid nervously behind some experimental subjects and said loudly to Caesar. Oh, 99. Caesar glanced at the remaining Skrulls and the Inhumans in confusion, focusing on Loki in shackles. If I don't let you go, are you going to kill Loki? Caesar said with a chuckle. Respected Sun God, we just want to survive, don't force us. 95. The Skrull leader said hoarsely. Live? Just live. Then why are you thinking of experimenting with human mutants and Protoss? Hehe, I'm never threatened, you want to kill him, do it. Caesar looked at the locked Loki and said playfully. Loki was full of surprise when he saw Caesar, but when he heard Caesar tell the Skrulls to kill him, his face immediately turned embarrassed. Then he hurriedly said. My dear brother, do you have the heart to let me die at the hands of these bastards? Who is your brother? You are the giants of Jotunheim. I, the Aesir, understand. Caesar said with a smile, Loki's deflated look is quite funny. No way, you are brothers, how could he be the giants of Jotunheim? 35. There is no problem with the experiment, we even successfully researched the frost power. How could he be giants of Jotunheim? These Skrulls are just a group of refugees, and there is no genetic sequence data of the known races in the universe that the Skrull Empire had secretly kept. The Skrull leader was shocked. After Loki was captured, he kept saying who his brother was, who his father was, and how strong they were. But if Loki turned out to be a giants of Jotunheim, then what happened? Caesar raised his eyebrows and looked at Loki with interest. They've probably never seen giants of Jotunheim as handsome as me, you know, I don't look the same as giants of Jotunheim, but my dear brother, you can't just die, Mom will be sad of. Loki snorted. How is it possible, how is it possible, is your mother? The Skrull leader clearly thought of something bad, but he didn't wait for him to finish.
The hand he held the controller firmly fell to the ground weakly. Loki was also closely surrounded by the Skrulls, disappeared directly, and came to Caesar. On the mother's face, there is no next time. When Caesar finished speaking, he blinked. The Skrull leader who was trying to pick up the controller and the group of Skrulls were all burned to ashes by a sea of golden flames. After removing the shackles and neurotoxin control device on Loki's body, Caesar didn't even look at Loki's pleasing appearance, and looked directly at the aliens. Parts of the Inhumans have fallen into complete chaos. 4 flowers. Scattered in all corners of Italan, thinking that hiding under the bed, the basement can avoid possible attacks, just like an ostrich. As for the noble members of the Inhumans who had some knowledge, they faced Caesar directly under the leadership of the old Third Order Inhuman. Because they know very well that it is useless wherever they hide. Caesar could destroy Italan if he wanted to. Respected and powerful gods, we concede defeat and implore you to spare these innocent residents of Italan. The old Third Order Inhuman leader said respectfully to Caesar. And then? Caesar asked directly. The reason why he didn't destroy the entire Italan directly after rescuing Loki was because Italan's Terrigen crystal was still needed. But these Inhumans seem to think that they have provoked a war, they have never fought, they admit defeat, and then they are gone, as if they don't have to pay any price. We've conceded defeat. Also, we have no grudges with you in the past. 99. An Inhuman noble said directly with a trace of dissatisfaction. Caesar stroked his forehead and lost his mood to speak to these aliens who had been in seclusion for a long time and practiced feudal rule. A fire directly burned those Inhuman nobles and the old Inhuman to ashes. At the same time, standing above the sky, he said to all the aliens. Within an hour, I need to see all the Terrigen crystals placed in front of me, otherwise, Italan will cease to exist. After Caesar finished speaking, he burned an entire city into glass, allowing those ordinary aliens who thought they could survive by hiding to see what Shinwei was. If you do something wrong, you will pay the price. A battle between civilizations and races, what mercy is there? It is true that most of the existing residents of Italan are really just ordinary people. But this is a war between civilizations and races, not a civil war between Inhumans. Caesar's fire did burn a lot of Inhumans, even young and old, but so what? If it wasn't for Caesar taking all the Terrigen crystals, the entire Inhumans would have no way to threaten him at all. He can even kill all Inhumans. Would you hold back a swarm of mosquitoes and locusts that might bite you? Totally impossible. In the war between the civilizations of the universe, we never leave our hands, and we never leave our swords behind. Chapter 94, The Woman Who Comes Mysteriously. After mercilessly killing some Inhumans who tried to hide the Terrigen crystal or couldn't hide. Within an hour, all the Terrigen crystals in Italan were piled up in front of Caesar. Using the space gem directly to take the crystals, Caesar destroyed Italan's power system. Makes Italan unable to activate again, then throws Loki directly in Asgard. As for the fact that he originally planned to give Loki a life planet as a reward for bringing himself Mind Gem. For Caesar's effort to save Loki's life, Loki willingly gave up the reward. No time to worry about Loki's situation in Asgard. Neither mobilizing the destroyer to assassinate Twor, or using Chitauri to attack Midgard can also be counted as a family conflict between Loki and Caesar, and Loki will not end up being imprisoned. At most, some Odin looked down upon him. Loki will adapt, though. Return to Earth, deal with the Skrulls, and complete the invitation to Tony. 357. After giving Tony a week to rest on Earth, he sent Tony and his wife Pepper directly to Angel. A lot of scientific research tasks are still waiting for Tony to study. If nothing else, the technology of steel armor alone has not yet developed nanotype armor. But if there is enough precious metal as the material, the Mark 7 alone is enough to match the second-tier powerhouse in a short period of time. Such combat power, in the universe, is not a bad street. Most importantly,
technology has a huge amount of advantage, that is, with enough material, it can be quickly replicated on a large scale. The iron and steel core is already in rapid preparations. Following the 3 angel legions, Caesar will add another powerful force. The research team's work continued, Caesar aside from giving Tony the occasional vacation to take some time off on Earth. For the rest of the time, he began to study the rewards after killing Black Bolt on Earth. Black Bolt's power seed, Caesar has not found a suitable candidate for the time being, but about the Terrigen Crystal Safety Awakening alien experiment, Caesar is already underway. Terrigen Crystal Safe Awakening allows even ordinary humans to successfully awakening some abilities. Although the combat power of most abilities is relatively weak, but there are still some abilities that have strong development potential. And, after the successful awakening, ordinary humans seem to have opened the limiter. You can gradually increase your strength through continuous practice or training. Caesar never imagined that he would be able to produce a few Tier 4 inhumans as powerful as Black Bolt, but even if he only produced some Tier 3 inhumans, it would be considered a strong force. It's just that Terrigen crystals can only awakening humans, not aliens. This greatly reduces the number of awakening warriors. It is impossible for Caesar to awakening all humans, because a large number of humans will not fight for Caesar at all. I had to select some more devout believers on Earth, let them awakening, and give them strength. Since then, the aliens of the new awakening have a brand new name, God-given warrior. The abilities are weird, and the God-given warrior will also become the special combat team under Caesar. For some small-scale special tasks, God-given warrior is obviously more suitable than Angel and Iron Legion. Just as Caesar continued to use the Terrigen Crystal awakening the God-given warrior, he secretly experienced the change of his own soul. On the internet, some videos and materials about the Skrulls changing their bodies and secretly conducting some cruel experiments with humans and mutants began to circulate wildly. A large number of human beings began to distrust the high-level government, and demanded that they disclose all secret information about aliens, angels, and even gods. After seeing the tragic situation of the experiment, some mutants also have some dissatisfaction, and also set off a turmoil in the whole Earth. But there are only a few mutants who have caused chaos. After all, not only mutants, but also ordinary humans are used as experiments. It was not humans who started the biochemical experiments, but the Skrulls. S.H.I.E.L.D, who was cleaned up with Angel's help, and under the leadership of Phil Coulson's agent, quickly suppressed mutants' unrest. However, with the release of those experimental videos and materials, as well as the Skrulls' innate ability to change their appearance and even be able to read a certain memory ability, a dark tide began to surge again. Mutant chaos and public distrust aside, the information distributed on the internet is obviously a powerful hacker group deliberately causing trouble. The Phil Coulson agent, who took up the position of the new director, specially convened a group of elite agents for this purpose, trying to find out the troublesome hacker group, Rising Tide. Some information and secrets are indeed better hidden than published. However, this comes at a time when Phil Coulson is busy hunting down hacker groups. In Caesar's residence, a young mysterious woman suddenly came to Caesar's door. Caesar didn't choose to be high in the sky on Earth, and it's no fun to stay on a battleship all day. Instead, he just found a house and lived a normal life like an ordinary person and experienced the mystery of the Earth. It's just that the house is bigger and more expensive. Caesar had already sensed the woman's arrival. Looking at the appearance of the woman, she smiled, preventing the God-given warrior from blocking her, and allowing her to come to Caesar's door smoothly. Before she could knock on the door, Caesar let her appear in front of him. "Oh my gosh, this is amazing! Are you the new god?" The mysterious woman's long black hair is scattered on both sides, her cheeks are red and full, a typical oval face, a high nose bridge, big eyes, a beautiful face, a plump body, with a little starlight in her eyes, with a hopeful look. His eyes were fixed on Caesar. "If there is no other new god, then it is me," Sky. Caesar smiled and said to the mysterious woman in front of him. Apart from the fact that she was the vibe girl in her memory, the slightly different black bolt power seed in her hand was the fundamental reason why Caesar let her come to the front of the room. The so-called memory characters might make Caesar give them a second look, but if for no other reason. Compared with the current Caesar, those characters in the memory are worlds apart, and they are not worthy of Caesar's personal reception at all. I found your information from some information on the internet. I want to ask you one thing. I want to know where my parents are. I have never met them. Can you help me? Sky asked excitedly. Sky, who was a Superman first-class IQ since childhood, has a super powerful hacker ability when he grows up. Almost all the information on the internet is left to her to browse. She can fly freely in the online world, but there is always one biggest problem that she can't solve after all. That's why she couldn't find out her true identity. She was abandoned since she was a child, and then went through a lot of adoption that could hardly be called a happy life. You know, except for some genuine benefactors, most of America's adopters are for government subsidies or some other shady purpose. And Sky 2.2 has been a beauty embryo since childhood. After going through a lot of bad things, she finally has enough ability to live on her own. But her childhood experiences made her have a deep obsession with her biological parents. She wanted to know who her parents were and why they abandoned her. Could her parents have accidentally left her just for unknown reasons, but they have always loved her deeply? Deep in his heart, Sky still yearns for the love of his parents. She couldn't find her parents' information on the internet at all. After she was lucky enough to know God's information, she began to pin her hopes on God. At least, this God is real. So Sky, risking huge amounts of money, came to Caesar. Definitely, I can tell everything about your parents, but at what cost? 5. Caesar stared at Sky and said softly. He did know information about Sky's parents. Chapter 95 End All Wars. Sky suddenly calmed down. Not saying all 2 words. Caesar smiled and said directly to Sky. Fight for me, I will tell you the secrets of your life experience, and give you incomparable power, so that you can see a wider universe. Think clearly, if you reject me, there will be no next chance. Even though Sky is pretty and fits Black Bolt's power seed perfectly, Caesar would never beg anyone to join his power. This is the dignity of being the ruler of the heavenly palace. Sky hesitation for a moment, his brain turned at a high speed, and then he directly agreed to Caesar's invitation. The obsession with parents, the yearning for the mysterious world, and the image of Caesar as a new god are not some horrible evil gods. There seems to be nothing wrong with fighting for the Lord. Sky got it, and Caesar threw Black Bolt's seed to Sky, allowing her to successfully awakening the shocking ability. Afterwards, he ordered a few god-given warriors to help Sky train to control the vibration ability. Caesar just disappeared. Promised to Sky, always bring Sky's parents. Sky's mother, Jiaying, is the patriarch of the earth and humans, with a powerful super healing ability. And control a huge amount of Terrigen crystal. Because of the scarcity of inhumans and the unkindness of human beings to inhumans as a whole, Sky's mother 03 was once imprisoned by humans and did a lot of experiments on her. Sky's mother, Jiaying, intends to pass the Terry crystal, disregarding the safety of ordinary people, and awakening ordinary inhumans in large numbers. Then, Caesar rushed directly to the gathering place of the aliens on Earth, knocked Jiaying unconscious, and took away the huge amounts of crystal. Earth, Caesar Hood, wants to do big things. Gotta get down. As for Sky's father, he is not a normal person either. He is very easy to be irritable because of some experiments. When Caesar appeared, he was definitely attacked by Sky's father. However, how could Caesar, who can easily crush the Hulk, take a Sky's father who was only stronger? He was knocked unconscious directly, and then, together with Sky's mother Jiaying, was thrown in front of Sky. At the same time, he told Sky about the situation of the two of them and some plans. As for how Sky negotiates and responds after her parents wake up, that's not Caesar's concern. Caesar now just wants to stay on the earth with peace of mind, feeling the mystery of the earth, and at the same time, waiting for the appearance of the reality gem. According to the time in memory, the reality gem will appear. Still, Caesar's steady life on earth hasn't gone away for a few days. Another trouble came at the door. Captain Marvel, Carol receives a call for help from the legendary roar machine she once left behind. Now, finally back to Earth. After learning that Caesar killed Nick Fury, killed all the Skrulls, and at the same time became the new master, secretly controlling the Earth, Carol finds Caesar. She wants Caesar to pay the price, and she never approves of Caesar's secret control over the entire planet. Even though, Caesar is the second-ranked master in the known universe and is the master of the Holy Heaven. Perennial wandering in the interstellar, keen to save the weak, Carol definitely knows the weight of Caesar. However, Carol never thought he would lose to Caesar before he played. For so many years, Carol has traveled across the universe and has never encountered an opponent. Even the three former empires of the universe did not dare to stop Carol's edge. The battle between Carol and Caesar is about to begin. In the void, in order to avoid bringing huge amounts of damage to the Earth, Carol and Caesar both chose the vast void as the battlefield. The Heavenly Palace rules, the Earth is definitely not a place you can touch, the Earth is protected by me, in addition, you must pay the price for the death of Nick Fury and those Skrulls. Carol said righteously. But Caesar just wanted to laugh. So, why can't I touch the Earth? 95. Because of your protection? So, when did Earth become yours? How did you protect the Earth? As for Nick Fury and those Skrulls, why, they can touch the Earth, but I can't touch the Earth? With a smile on Caesar's face, he said contemptuously. Carol Kong is extremely powerful, but some of the ideas she pursues, Caesar just finds it ridiculous. Carol was at a loss for words, and then said directly. In short, the Earth is protected by me, and the invasion of foreign forces will never be allowed. As for Nick Fury and those Skrulls, they are just ordinary Earth and some refugees from the Skrull Empire, why do you have to kill them? So you don't know much about Nick Fury and the Skrulls' deaths? Caesar said thoughtfully. Carol should have directly followed the location where the roar's last signal was sent, first to the far side of the moon. And then found Idalan, who had lost both power and barrier protection. From Idalan's alien population, I learned that Caesar killed Nick Fury and the Skrulls. Then, I briefly understood the information on the Earth. Bloody information about Skrulls experimenting with humans and mutants has been completely blocked due to a series of actions by the rising tide. But the image of Caesar as the new god can be seen in any church. Then, Carol got into trouble with Caesar. No matter what the reason, as the ruler of the sacred heaven, you should not interfere with the government affairs of the Earth, and the Earth is definitely not a place for you to run wild. Carol's whole body exploded with energy, and the feather weave formed by the energy on his head moved without wind, his fists clenched against each other, and an incomparably powerful energy burst out instantly, dyeing a bright color in the void. So, the Skrulls can intervene, and the Earthlings can self-destruct, but I can't. In general, it's just a sentence after all, whoever is stronger is justified. 35. Caesar looked at Carol's dazzling threat, shook his head, and said directly. Carol claims to be the protector of the Earth, but always travels in the interstellar, wanton helping those civilizations that he thinks are weak and worthy of help. Stop all wars. For Earth, though left an emergency roar rescue device. But when the Earth is really about to encounter a danger of extinction, Carol has no way to get back in time. The planet she shelters is far more than the Earth. But there is only one reason why Caesar does not agree with her so-called concept of protecting the weak and ending wars. That is, weak, when does it necessarily mean the need for protection? Does ending the war really bring redemption? Especially in this universe where there are countless civilizations and limited resources, all civilizations are struggling to develop and compete. Are Skrull refugees worth helping? They are really just a bunch of refugees. What is the price of helping them? The Earth was almost destroyed directly by the missiles of the Kerry Empire. When the Skrulls were hiding, they never thought about whether they would bring devastating disasters to the hiding planet. I have never thought about whether it would provoke a very powerful force in the universe for the very weak and still 357 Earth. Even if Carol succeeds in awakening and prevents the destruction of the planet, what then? Can the Skrulls who failed to escape the Earth really treat the native races on Earth well? You must know that ordinary human beings on Earth are far inferior to Skrulls in terms of physical fitness, technology, and ability. Will the Skrulls watch the Earthlings squander the resources of the Earth, and are willing to forcibly restrain their own ability not to rule the Earth? This is equivalent to throwing humans into the orangutan den and forcing humans to obey the orders of the orangutans instead of ruling the group. It is too difficult and too inhumane. Most importantly, being weak doesn't necessarily mean you need help. Many venomous snakes and beasts were also very weak when they were young. Even some ruthless civilizations dare to show their fangs to humans when they are very weak. Finally, about war. The so-called end of all wars is actually the greatest power. For example, the war between the Skrull and the Kerry Empire, right or wrong? For example, forcibly ending a war of revenge and revival that a civilization has prepared for thousands of years, then, for that civilization, is forcibly ending the war a redemption? Caesar hates meaningless wars, but some wars have meaning. The resources of the universe are limited, and all civilizations are constantly expanding. Sometimes, if there is no competition, that is self-destruction. In that way, the so-called end of all wars means the greatest power. If such a power is really needed in the universe, then, it should only be controlled by Caesar. At least, after he took control of the entire universe. Until then, the war will never stop. Chapter 96 The Conspiracy of the Two Great Empires. The idea was different, and Caesar didn't say much. Earth never needed Carol's shelter. The ownership of the Earth was never Carol's final say. Fight, only fight, fight with the simplest power. Prove that who really has the right to speak on the Earth. Carol's double star form exploded, penetrated by the energy of the space gem, and then luckily linked to Carol, the source of the universe's power, with endless energy. But Caesar, with the space gem in hand and the power of the sun, never lacks energy. An empty, dead void. On this day, ushered in the most violent energy shock. Fist to fist, foot to foot, head to head, endless energy released wantonly. In the entire void, circles and circles of beautiful energy ripples collided. It's just such a ripple, although it looks beautiful, it is too terrifying. A huge amount of meteorite just roams the void as usual. The ripples that suddenly expanded were directly rolled into pieces. The incomparably huge energy fluctuations shook several small galaxies around. The powerful and undisguised powerful energy response has not been able to hide some powerful forces in the universe. The main thing is that Carol and Caesar have been in the void, fighting for 3 days and 3 nights. The huge energy reaction at the fixed location definitely attracted the onlookers of some powerful forces in the universe. The energy of both sides is infinite, and the flesh of both sides still looks intact under the infinite energy. The fight will continue. It seems that I don't know when the final outcome will be determined. Sure enough, it was because of the lack of powerful attack methods and weapons. In the past, they used infinite energy to crush their opponents. Now, when they meet Carol with the same infinite energy, they really can't take her down for a while. Caesar secretly thought that the offensive in his hand did not stop at all, and if he continued to fight, he must be the one who won in the end, and this battle would not have to drag on for too long. Carol took another round of Caesar's attack with force, and felt a little distressed in her heart. Carol, who has never met an opponent, is the first to meet an opponent like Caesar. Familiar energy fluctuations,
the same infinite energy, but in addition, the violent sun power mixed in the space energy from time to time, also caused Carol's body to keep surging. If you continue to fight for a long time, the accumulated dark injuries will one day break out completely, causing Carol to be defeated on the spot. Even if such a dark injury accumulates, it may take a month for Carol, who has infinite energy. But Carol didn't want to go on like this at all. For her, besides the Earth, there are too many planets waiting for her protection, and too many wars waiting for her to stop. She simply didn't want to waste her time in a long, doomed battle. Carol wanted to quit, but Caesar didn't let her go. It has been 3 days and 3 nights of fighting, and seeing the victory in sight, how could it be that Carol said that he can retreat by retreating? Carol was unable to advance or retreat, but had no choice but to fall into a deadlock with Caesar again. The two were on the verge of a terrifying battlefield. Several large or gorgeous or majestic battleships were firmly fixed in the void. Constantly observe and analyze the battle between the two. His strength has become stronger again, and the energy of both of them is almost infinite. If one day, a final battle occurs, I am afraid that our Kerry Empire will not be able to stop it except to use the energy of all the clansmen. Dujian said worriedly in the battleship of the Kerry Empire. Caesar and his sacred temple are developing too fast. On the other hand, the supreme wisdom of the Kerry Empire is also analyzing and comparing the two. In the end, the conclusion was that, no matter what, even if the Kerry Empire used its final trump card, the Kerry Empire could only be defeated after a long battle. We must do our best to strengthen the Star God's combat power and prevent the arrival of the final battle. Seconded. Supreme meeting, all members passed. At the same time, the high-ranking general of the Kerry Empire, the accuser Ronan, watched the terrifying battle scene between the two, especially Carol, gritted his teeth, and swore that one day, he would control such a powerful the power of abandoning the traditional way of reproduction through continuous optimization of genes. The sovereigns who are directly cultivated through demand-oriented genes have always been a symbol of power and arrogance. They often claim to be perfect creations, with golden skin, arrogant expressions, powerful energy cells, and mechanical control beyond the visual range, so that the entire sovereign family has a great right to speak in the universe. But with the battle between the two people observed at the scene, they also had to bow their arrogant heads. Because with the current strength of the sovereign family, even if they fight everything, they can't hurt those two monsters with infinite energy. The energy cells of the sovereign family can burst out huge amounts of power, but these, if you want to hurt Caesar and Carol, are not enough, far from enough. Every energy collision between Caesar and Carol has a power that exceeds that of sovereign battery bombs. The sovereign family lacks real high-end combat power. As a well-known neutral commercial star in the universe, Xandar planet has also deterred many evil forces in the universe with its powerful Nova Core. But the powerful Nova Core can only be eclipsed in front of Caesar and Carol. Even if the Nova Core are linked together, they can't stop the attack of the two at all. The upper limit analysis of the two energy fluctuations clearly showed that they exceeded the limit of Nova Core defense. The battle continues, except for the 4 cosmic forces. A strange space battleship also appeared on the edge of the battlefield. A tall figure with a hood covering his body completely concealed himself, and he also began to pay careful attention to the battle between the two. At the same time, the supreme wisdom of the Kerry Empire started the most in-depth communication directly with the Empress of Shia. They are discussing repeatedly and meticulously. Do you want to take advantage of the time when Caesar is fighting with Carol? Do whatever it takes to unite with Carol and kill Caesar completely? Although Carol destroys everywhere to end the war, she shelters the good kings, the so-called weak planet. But Carol only has one. Even if he shelters one planet a day, it will only be 300 a year. Thanos' adopted daughter, Nebula, can even offer to help Ronan destroy 1,000 planets without changing his face. For the two empires, taking out 10,000 planets and letting Carol play to his heart's content is not a problem.
As long as he can completely kill Caesar and end his holy heaven, those angels are stronger again. Moreover, some strange steel armors began to wander around Angel Star. The development of the holy heavenly palace is too fast and must be curbed. But it is about the final cards of the two countries, and whether it is really safe to keep Caesar. The supreme wisdom of the Kerry Empire and the Queen of Shia are still constantly negotiating, constantly making the most nuanced analysis, and trying to be foolproof. They cannot afford to fail. But before the results were discussed, the situation of the battle suddenly changed. Chapter 97 Sun Scepter. A gorgeous Tiangong battleship suddenly appeared on the edge of the battlefield. On the battleship, the commander-in-chief of the First Angel Legion of the Sacred Heavenly Palace, the Heavenly Blade King Keisha, was holding a scepter. Then, he quickly joined the battle group and handed the scepter directly to Caesar. Starting with a scepter is as heavy as 1,000 pounds. But in the hands of today's Caesar, Wan Jun is no more than a man. He waved it casually, feeling the active and powerful solar power in his body, and directly placed a blue gem on the scepter that had already installed another gem. The power, the infinite power, seemed to surge up in an instant. Caesar closed his eyes for a moment to feel it, and then opened it abruptly. A surge of energy that was far more powerful than his previous self suddenly erupted from his body. That is the real fourth order limit, the combat power of the first level Heavenly Father. He glanced at Carol, who was being entangled by Keisha, and waved the scepter. The power of Mind Gem deterred Carol's mind, and the power of Space Gem moved Caesar's body. At the bottom of the scepter, above the sharp tip of the staff, a little golden light condensed to the extreme is flickering. A stab, a simple stab, directly penetrated Carol's body. But the power of Mind Gem can only deter Carol for a moment. The scepter enters the body, and the ultimate power of the sun explodes instantly. 360. Carol suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. No, it can't be said to be blood. It should be said to be a lot of blue and gold energy. After linking to the origin of the universe and obtaining endless energy, Carol's body has already slowly turned into energy. Carol pushed Caesar and scepter away from his body with all his strength. Then, while covering the wound on his waist with one hand, he looked at Caesar with a painful and shocked expression. Caesar didn't answer, waved Caesar away, and stepped forward again. Although Keisha is strong enough now, in front of Carol and Caesar, it is still not enough to see. Caesar didn't want Carol to take a fatal blow and hurt Keisha. Carol's energy body, combined with endless energy, is indeed difficult to kill. But Caesar didn't think about it, so he killed Carol directly. Too much trouble and unnecessary. Once again, I tried my best to stimulate the energy of the two infinite gems, and at the same time I experienced the pressure of using two infinite gems at the same time. He directly used the top of this sun scepter, that is, the sun crown, the place where gems are inlaid, and slammed it hard on Carol's head. Mind Gem hit Carol's head directly, making her mind, confused. Later, when Space Gem came into contact with Carol, it radiated a strange light again. Space, distorted. Caesar took advantage of Carol's confusion. Just 1 foot. Kicked Carol into a twisted void. There, is the prison that Caesar specially chose for Carol. Without tens of hundreds of years, it is impossible to escape with the strength of Carol alone. Caesar glanced around, and the strange battleship and the figure shrouded in the black robe left the battlefield as early as the scepter appeared. The remaining stars of Xandar, the sovereign family, as well as the Kerry and Shia Empire, after a little gesture with Caesar. He also left this space directly. Just when they left, the 4 major forces seemed to be a little silent, and the Kerry Empire and the Shia Empire got closer. Caesar didn't care, and took a closer look at the sun scepter that was finally made after exhausting almost all the vibranium and Ulu steel. Above the scepter, 2 gems, one yellow and one blue, are exuding powerful and infinite energy. But Caesar focused on the test for a moment, then sighed. Although the 2 infinite gems are embedded on the scepter, Caesar can also use the power of the 2 infinite gems at the same time. But even if Caesar used these 2 infinite gems at the same time, his energy index failed to get the huge improvement he imagined. Just as 2 small caliber weapons are placed together, it does not mean that the calibers of the 2 weapons have become a superposition of the 2, and their power has increased dramatically. It just means that you can open the bow left and right, and in an instant, you can emit a powerful energy of the same caliber. Thanos has also collected several gems, but he did not use the special energy application device on the Infinity Gauntlet to activate the power of 6 infinite gems at the same time, and then trigger the source power of the entire universe. With several powerful infinite gems in hand, he couldn't completely crush all the enemies. On the contrary, the more infinite gems it carries, the more obvious the suppression of its own strength. Even with the powerful body of Thanos' Eternal Titan family, after carrying 6 infinite gems and failing to activate the power of 6 infinite gems at the same time, facing the 4th order divine power of awakening and holding Stormbreaker Thor, he even resisted. Not live. On the contrary, when there is no gem in his hand, he can still win the victory in the face of the decadent Thor and the siege of many Avengers. Speaking of which, before failing to collect all 6 infinite gems, the more infinite gems you carry, the more useless it is. Caesar mused, no wonder Odin had also collected infinite gems, but in the end chose to give it up and scattered it all over the place. Before collecting 6, 1, and several, for the top powerhouse, there is not much difference. Caesar thought for a while, and directly deducted the 2 infinite gems from the scepter. Then, he made plans to distribute infinite gems to his powerful subordinates. The Sun Scepter is a God-King level weapon. Caesar holds the Sun Scepter, the Sun's divine power can be further improved, and he can become a true Heavenly Father. This is the strongest power in the known universe. With 2 infinite gems in hand, he can no longer make him stronger. On the contrary, he will distribute 2 infinite gems to the powerful angel kings who are powerful enough to carry the gems. But it can once again harvest several powerful combat powers close to the 4th order limit. With teleportation and over-the-horizon telepathy, Caesar is not afraid of who can take the gem from the King of Angel, so why not do it? The space gem was directly handed over to the Holy Keisha, which gave Keisha a combat power close to the 4th order limit. At the same time, with the space gem in hand, the First Angel Legion can more quickly spread angels' faith throughout the known universe. The energy accumulated in the reincarnation pool is already huge. Liang Bing and Hexi have also achieved further improvements one after another. Without external force, it also has the powerful strength of the 4th order medium level. When the Earth's beliefs are completely digested, the strength of the 3 kings of angels can even be further improved, or more king-rank angels can be awakening. In a teleportation, she returned to Angel Star, handed the mind gem to Lian Bing, and at the same time told her that if she was under siege, don't be stubborn, send a message to Keisha and herself in time, and she would be able to come to support immediately. After that, I dealt with the government affairs a little bit at Angel Star, and visited the Iron Legion, which has exploded in number. After expressing praise to Tony and suggesting that Tony can develop in the direction of nano-war armor, he dodged and returned to Earth. The mystery of the Earth still needs to be excavated and understood, and the Vibe female Sky, who is under the new income, also needs to be trained, and the reality gem, no accident, will appear soon. Chapter 98 Unique Technology. After returning to Earth, I went to the far side of the moon. With a single blow, Adelan was completely plunged into the center of the moon. This is the price paid by the Inhumans for instigating Carol to trouble Caesar. Then, Caesar began to wait. Near Stonehenge, England, in 2013. After witnessing a tragic battle, Jane, who has no idea about Thor, is still doing her job because of Dr. Eric's information. Found a space-distorting place. Then when using a specific instrument to detect spatial fluctuations, Caesar suddenly appeared in front of her. It disappeared immediately. Caesar went directly into a mysterious place, grabbed TIE particles, and came out. When Caesar catches the TIE particles directly integrate into Caesar's body. Reality gem is the only liquid in the infinite rough, and the way to control reality gem is to integrate with it. But this kind of integrate, if it is a human with insufficient strength, will continue to consume its own vitality after TIE particles integrate. Finally, with a bang, it exploded directly. Then, TIE particles will start integrating new hosts again. The Dark Elves also possessed the reality gem long ago, and by researching the gem, they also created a unique substance. Injecting this substance into the Dark Elf's body will burn the user's life massively. But before their lives run out, every Dark Elf will become a mighty warrior, that is, a cursed warrior. Among them, the most powerful cursed warrior even has a weak fourth-order strength, and can even easily resist the might of Mjolnir. Caesar thought about it for a while, exercised his divine power, and directly trapped the group of TIE particles in his hands, neither integrating it into himself nor handing it over to Hexy. With Hexy's physical strength, he can definitely control the reality gem unscathed. However, integrating reality gem is easy. It is extremely difficult to take out the reality gem in the future. This is a difficulty that even the entire Asgard, including Odin, cannot do. Although Caesar is extremely confident in himself and Hexy's scientific research team, he is not willing to spend a lot of time on researching how to take out TIE particles. Waiting for the group of Dark Elves to follow TIE particles to the door. Kill them and get the extraction technology and ability of TIE particles, as well as unique technologies such as the Dark Elves' cursed warriors and the invisibility of warships. The core technology of the Dark Elves that once dominated the universe was in sight, and Caesar had no reason to let it go. That will greatly enhance the strength of the entire sacred heavenly palace. Suddenly appearing, suddenly disappearing, and swishly reappearing Caesar. The shocked Jane was ignored. Thor has no plans to come to Midgard after seeing some of Jane's circumstances. Jane now has a new boyfriend. Holding the reality gem directly, I chose a place and waited for the arrival of the Dark Elves. At the same time, Valina was sent to Frigga's side. The stealth technology of the Dark Elves' warships is too powerful for even Heimdall to detect. Most importantly, they have enough hatred and understanding of Asgard. Even though the reality gem is in the hands of Caesar, it exists on Earth. But no one can say whether the Dark Elves will directly hit Asgard for revenge. Frigga's life must be guaranteed. The powerful Valina is currently the best person to protect Frigga. A few days later, in the desert, a gigantic Dark Elf battleship slowly emerged beside Caesar. The corners of Caesar's mouth twitched slightly, quietly watching a group of Dark Elves fly out of the battleship, and then surrounded Caesar. Dark Elf technology is really good, even with Caesar's strength. It was only when the Dark Elf battleship was approaching him that he discovered it. Civilizations that are not strong enough or do not have unique detection technology, I am afraid that only after the first round of shelling can find the enemy's location. Such technology is undoubtedly extremely powerful in space battles, and will greatly enhance the strength of Caesar's space battleships and fighters. The Dark Elf leader Malekith, as well as a large number of Dark Elves, after surrounding Caesar, did not speak, and started a merciless attack. Want to kill Caesar directly, and then retake TIE particles. Unfortunately, the desert is the graveyard that Caesar specially chose for this group of Dark Elves. Keisha, who was in charge of the space gem, suddenly appeared with Liang Bing, who was in charge of the mind gem. Holy Keisha directly used the power of the space gem to imprison all the weak Dark Elves. Liang Bing used mind gem's energy one by one to stun them first. The leader of the Dark Elves, Malkis, including several powerful Dark Elves, has great strength, and it is difficult to control their behavior by being imprisoned by the group of space gems alone. Especially, after seeing a large number of Dark Elves fall directly to the ground. A powerful Dark Elf warrior just wanted to crush a strange crystal. He wants to sacrifice himself to become a powerful cursed warrior. To turn the tide of the battle. 0. 4 flowers. But, unfortunately, faced with what may be the only crystal of the dark elves in existence that can turn a person into a cursed warrior, Caesar was reluctant to let the dark elves use it here. With a flash, he cut off the arm that was holding the crystal tightly, and then pinched the crystal in his hand. Dark elves, before turning into cursed warriors or mastering TIE particles, are too weak. Caesar looked at the crystal, tossed it up and down, and then threw it directly to Hexy. Maybe it's just such a piece, study it first, if you can't find anything, let a dark elf transform and then study it. Caesar said casually, dismissing the dark elves that once dominated the universe as nothing. Who are you? Malekith asked, staring at Caesar. He couldn't believe that the dark elves had just woken up from a long slumber and finally waited until the next day when the celestial bodies converged, as long as they won TIE particles. 0. The entire 9 realms can be plunged into darkness, and the dark elves will once again take charge of the 9 realms and restore their former glory. However, it just came out and has not recaptured TIE particles. Are the dark elves wiped out? To be turned into an experiment? Malekith will never be reconciled. But, Caesar didn't even plan to answer, he waved his hand, and Lian Bing temporarily gave up those ordinary dark elves. Directly stunned Malekith to the ground. If it weren't for the unique technology of some dark elves, only Malekith might know it. Caesar would never allow Malekith to survive today. After capturing all the dark elves alive, they handed them over to Liang Bing to use Mind Gem for torture. Valina also sent a message. Except that some dark elves tried to sneak into Asgard, starting a small rebellion, which was quickly suppressed. Asgard was relatively calm, and Frigga was even more unscathed. It's Loki, always yelling to see you. Loki's days in Asgard were not very good. After reading the news, Caesar instructed Valina to continue protecting Frigga for a while, ignoring Loki afterward. With the power seed of Black Bolt King, he led Sky, who was quickly promoted to Tier 3, to deal with another troublesome matter. It just so happened that a god-given warrior with the ability to sense the dark aura discovered a deeply hidden but terrifying dark aura. The 9 worlds' celestial bodies will gather soon. A powerful demon who has been hiding in the earth for a long time, also intends to take this opportunity to do a wave of things. Something was delayed today. There are still 2 chapters, it will be later. Knife. Chapter 99 Mephisto and Number 039, S Plan. When the 9 realms gather, not only can they take the opportunity to travel through the 9 realms through some strange places. Some of the mystical seals on Earth will also weaken at the moment. Mephisto has been hiding in the Earth for a whole year, but the destruction of Hell not only makes Mephisto lose the source of power. It also made Mephisto's power weaker and weaker. Mephisto simply couldn't stand such a world. Even if his strength continues to weaken, he can continue to survive on the earth for tens of thousands of years. Mephisto has great revenge and ambition, and is also extremely decisive. He can even give up the position of the Devil King at his fingertips. But now, it's finally time for Mephisto to implement his plan. Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze possessed an incomparable power within his body. That power comes from the original elemental spirit, Thanos. Thanos is also known as the Lord of the Elemental Demon 360s, and he likes to devour human souls by nature. The human soul will bring him great power. But Thanos was defeated and sealed by the original gods and a group of vengeful spirits long ago. Moreover, after the spirit of vengeance sealed Thanos, he also tried to use the power of Thanos to destroy those sinful souls. Johnny, possessing the blood of the first generation of vengeful spirits, at the same time, also awakening the power of vengeful spirits. By day, he's a cool motorcycle actor, and by night, he's a sin-conscious ghost rider. But Thanos' power is by no means easy to borrow. When he saw the sinful human beings, Johnny could not control Thanos' desire to devour and destroy. Johnny even began to hate the magic in his body, because it made him unable to live a normal life at all.
There's no nightlife, no romance, and no control at all when evil people pass by nearby at night. Such power, for Johnny, is a kind of torture. Johnny would rather be a normal person if he could. Then, normal love, have children. Don't worry about suddenly turning into a skull at night and frightening your lover to half-death, and don't worry about going to have a good rest at night, and suddenly go after the villain uncontrollably. Mephisto took advantage of this Johnny. He took advantage of the gathering of the 9 realms and the celestial bodies, when the seal was weakening. Let Johnny give up the power of Thanos in his body, and then rely on this power. Thanos is released. With the strength of Thanos, it will slowly turn the entire earth into hell. Mephisto, on the other hand, will be in a new hell. Crowned as the most powerful demon lord of all time. Plan pass. However, the moment Mephisto just released Thanos, the weakened Mephisto was directly swallowed by Thanos. Thanos likes to devour souls, and the more sinful he is, the more he likes the souls of the souls. So, whose soul is more delicious than the soul of the last demon lord Mephisto? Thanos will definitely not miss the deliciousness that is delivered to the eyes. Belch. Satisfied, Thanos began to stare at the soul beside him. The soul of Caesar is also exceptionally delicious. Above Caesar's soul, there is also the aura of the death of a large number of souls. Caesar killed too many lives with his own hands. But it is neither right nor wrong, nor sin. Thanos just likes to devour souls. Approaching the strength of the Father, Caesar secretly assessed Thanos in front of him. And Thanos, after devouring Mephisto, thought the soul of Caesar was delicious. But the looming threat from Caesar made him control his greed. Calmly nodded with Caesar and made a move. Roar. Just want to cross Caesar, go to the human world, and enjoy the delicacy of the soul. Caesar's strength is unknown, and it is not necessary to fight. Thanos doesn't want to fight with Caesar either. Anyway, Caesar's soul has not produced the essential difference with those of ordinary human beings. Devouring some ordinary human beings is enough to offset Caesar's soul. However, the soul and belief of the entire earth now belong to Caesar. Every soul will mean powerful energy, and an angel that may be born. How could Thanos be allowed to devour him wantonly? Caesar moved his steps and blocked Thanos in front of him. Thanos, who had been sealed for a long time, didn't know Caesar at all, and he never had any old grudges with Caesar. As for swallowing the souls of some ordinary people, isn't it a trivial matter in the eyes of powerhouses of their level? Whether it is devouring or belief, it is essentially the use of human souls, and no one can be said to be more noble. Thanos looked at Caesar suspiciously with his flaming skull. He didn't feel the aura of vengeance in Caesar. Spirits of vengeance are some powerful biological weapons created by the Celestials. Similar to the incarnation of rule, the purpose of their birth is to defeat Thanos. The spirit of vengeance is Thanos' greatest enemy. I watched you devour Mephisto's soul, and then, under my perception, your strength increased slightly. 39. I wonder, why? You can gain ascension by eating souls? Caesar asked curiously. Blocking will definitely block Thanos, but he is also extremely suspicious of Thanos' identity and ability. Thanos did not answer and was silent for a moment. An iron chain flickering with blue flames, with lightning speed, was suddenly drawn towards Caesar. Blue flame. Although Thanos' attack was extremely fast, Caesar, who had been prepared for a long time, did not take this attack seriously at all. Just waved his arm, intending to catch this chain, and then swallow those flames. Let Thanos know what the sun god is. But in an instant, Caesar was alert, and withdrew his arms, and even dodged to avoid the distance. Without feeling the temperature, it was no ordinary flame. Burning the soul. Caesar thought subconsciously, and then, waving the scepter, a golden flame returned to Thanos. Thanos had no intention of evading. He is the spirit of the elements, the incarnation of rule,
and very few energy in the world can kill him. 2.2 The golden flame spread rapidly on Zatanna's body. But it's like having an isolation circle. The continuously burning blue flames on Zatanna's body blocked the further burning of the golden flames. After a while, the golden flame was directly annihilated. Just as Caesar pondered how to kill Zatanna's, Zatanna began to answer. I analyzed the power deep in the human soul, and the essence of soul energy is extremely high. As long as I have enough soul energy, I will be able to achieve further promotion. Don't worry, I'm not going to devour all humans, they need to develop. 99. If you want, we can divide equally, and even if you want, I can help you study the secrets of the human soul. 99. Only with sufficient strength can we have the qualifications for equal dialogue. The 100-palm eye of judgment. What does the deepest power of the human soul represent? Why are you willing to help me? Caesar asked, pretending to be curious. There is definitely a great secret in the depths of the human soul, but people or forces who conduct in-depth research without authorization will be hostile to the entire gods. Thanos' proposal seems to be very good, but in reality, there is a huge amount of trap hidden in it. However, Caesar wondered why Zatanna could still survive after learning about those secrets. With his strength, he is by no means an opponent of the hordes of gods. That is the truth, it is hope. If you study deeply, you will naturally understand. As for why you are willing to help you, because your strength is strong enough. Thanos said bluntly. Reality? Hope. True hope. Caesar's brain started to go numb. He remembered that after sacrificing all the infinite gems, the system reward he got was true hope. But this reward seems to be related to the secret of the earth and the secret of the human soul. So, what is this secret? Caesar is now very curious to know. Almost instantly, he wanted to agree to Zatanna's conditions. However, then, from Odin's personal experience, Caesar's greed was immediately terminated. The gods are too strong. Even if there are only 9 celestials, even if Odin desperately killed one celestial, the remaining 8 gods also represent 8 combat powers that are at least close to the 4th order limit. In the known universe, there is currently no force that can stop it. With the strength of Caesar's current subordinates, it is far from enough. Greed is the devil, the ladder of destruction. Curious, when the strength is insufficient, it will really be dead man. Caesar doesn't want to die yet. No question, no further answer. Caesar pushed the sun scepter with all his strength, after reaching the 4th order limit. Caesar has successfully mastered the power source of the sun, the energy of thermonuclear fusion. That means near infinite energy, and an astonishing burst of energy. Even Caesar can core collapse fixed star at any time if he wants to, transform it into a supernova, and then trigger the most terrifying supernova explosion. At that time, unimaginably huge energy will burst out in an instant, sending out gamma-ray bursts that can destroy all life. Such an attack is enough to destroy an entire small galaxy, affecting tens of thousands of light-years around it. But Caesar couldn't have triggered a supernova bombardment near Earth. He just completely ignited a trace of solar power in the form of thermonuclear fusion. Then, he gathered this divine power at the bottom of the sun scepter, and stabbed Zatanna at it. Zatanna also seemed to have been prepared for a long time, and a large number of iron chains could not be wrapped around the sun scepter, trying to resist Caesar's attack. But although the soul chain is extremely strange and powerful, the difference in energy level is by no means easy to cross. The chains crumbled, and the stab of the sun scepter came closer and closer to Zatanna. Zatanna's nose had no intention of using his body to take Caesar's powerful blow at all. It is the spirit of the elements, the embodiment of rule. However, its body is still energy. When the energy disintegrates, it burns out. The consciousness of Zatanna will also be scattered among the infinite elements, unable to gather again at all. When they gather again, it is by no means the current Zatanna. The soul chains tried their best to entangle, and the dense chains even circled, blocking the entire sky. Caesar didn't care, the divine power erupted again, pushing the sun scepter forward. A little soul chain attack, in front of Caesar, who has completely exploded with divine power, has been completely disintegrated before he can touch Caesar's body. The chains were unable to withstand Caesar's attack, and Thanos retreated, trying to avoid the battle with Caesar. But Caesar didn't let Thanos's plans go. Thanos just broke out. Although he devoured Mephisto to increase his energy slightly, in front of Caesar, who has mastered the ultimate power of the sun and thermonuclear fusion, Thanos' energy is far from enough. If it wasn't for the safety of the Earth, Caesar would devote a bit of effort to control the release of energy. Thanos simply couldn't take Caesar's full blow. After attacking and defending several times, Thanos' energy became weaker and weaker, but he couldn't escape at all. Seeing this goes on, he can only fail. Thanos was simply heartbroken, when Caesar attacked again. Directly spread the soul chain, let go of part of the defense, and the sun scepter of Caesar still pierced into the body, and then, the divine power at the bottom of the sun scepter exploded, directly blasting Thanos' body and legs to smithereens. But the scattered soul chains formed a small cage. Thanos' remaining hands tightly grasped the sun scepter, and the strange blue flames began to attack Caesar's body along the sun scepter. At the same time, above Thanos' skull, from the deep eye sockets, two blue lights appeared directly, and shot into Caesar's eyes strangely. "Come to judgment, sinner!" Thanos' smug laughter began to suddenly echo in Caesar's mind. An incomparably powerful soul charge hits Caesar's deepest weakness. As long as Caesar has the slightest weakness and remorse for some of the things he has done, then, this attack will directly ignite the soul of Caesar, Ghost Rider, and Thanos' most powerful attack. Oh, that's it. In Caesar's mind, countless voices began to echo at the same time. I thought it would be the purest consumption of soul power, but I didn't expect that it would still need to mobilize the enemy's weakness. Thanos, you, let me down. The overlapping voices reverberated in Caesar's mind, seemingly forming an incomparably huge encirclement, wrapping Thanos' 360 soul. That is the common strength of all angels, and even all devout believers. But fortunately, I finally caught you. Caesar said casually. How could Caesar be unprepared for Ghost Rider's Eye of Judgment? It was just a plan, and he had already made plans to use the reincarnation pool, as well as the flames of heaven and the furnace of hell in it, to directly trap Thanos' soul. The reincarnation pool is linked to the consciousness of all angels. And the flames of heaven and the furnace of hell are the soul passages that link all human beings after death. With the strength of Thanos alone, it is impossible to break through these three lines of defense. Even if there is a breakthrough, Caesar has already planned. Thanos began to struggle hard, constantly torturing the souls of the burning angels. But angel, born pure, never regrets. Moreover, a single spark can start a prairie fire. It can be placed on the boundless sea, only to usher in the final extinction. Thanos' consciousness was plunged into chaos directly under the impact of countless souls. Hexy, put it directly into the furnace of hell, burn it for a while, and then find out the release method of Eye of Judgment and the deep application skills of human soul energy, then directly destroy its consciousness completely. Let's go. 5. There are some secrets that have not yet been explored. Even if Caesar has already guessed, Thanos' identity is by no means simple. End of the chapter. Like and subscribe for more videos like this.